Hey, good afternoon, beautiful people. It is the Sunday show on the 25th of January, 2026. It's me and it's Erika. The first time we've hosted the line together. So I'm excited. Hi, Erika.
Is this really our first time? Well, it was almost going to not be our first time because the reason we're late today is because I forgot that I was on today. I put it on I want you guys to know, put it on my big calendar. Here it is. It's right here. I just forgot to check my big calendar on account of, like a lot of the United States right now, I'm sitting under about a foot of snow and some ice and it's still coming down. So, but I am excited to be here with Seth, my good buddy Seth.
Yeah, well, I was late too. I got a call from Arden 2 minutes to 1. She's like, did you know that we start at 1? And I was like, I had a no shit moment. And so I rushed upstairs, plugged everything in. And I'm like, well, am I in my jammies? You know, what am I doing? Do I have my, I had some Casey and Faith up in Sarnia sent me a t-shirt that says honorary Canadian. And I think I was checking to see if I had my honorary Canadian shirt on. So
now's a good time to be an honorary Canadian, right? Like, maybe we'll get some MAGA colors tonight. I would love to hear some people call in and defend the execution that just happened yesterday. So that would be interesting. But I am also kind of in my dregs. I'm wearing like my cleaning clothes because it's Sunday. So like I clean up on Sundays. Like me and my husband do all of our chores around the house. So I'm wearing this old shirt from the apartment complex that I lived in when I was in college. So this is an Arkansas flag. I want you guys to know this is not Arkansas. Unfortunately, has a Confederate looking flag, but that's where I got my undergraduate degree. So you know, all my stuff has that on it because if I got it during that time period, they're very proud of the flag. Even though I wish I had a different design. So don't get it twisted. I may be dressed like a loser today, but I'm here to play.
Yeah. You look good. You look comfortable in your own skin and ready to take calls from anybody. But we prioritize theists. By the way, I get the chance to take the stage with Erika and Forrest Valkai March the 7th in my hometown of Tulsa, Oklahoma. I was going to actually text you, Erika. We are like 2 tickets away from 200 sold. And really? So the event arena holds, I think, around 300. So we are really notching up. So if anybody wants to know about that, just go to my website, sethandrews.com/March7. It's the number 7, sethandrews.com/March7. And it's going to be, everyone keeps asking me the same thing. How in the hell are you going to keep Forrest and Erika 2-3 hours? Like, how is that going to? And I'm like, we're going to have to sedate them. We're going to put people with tranquilizer dart guns and literally just knock you at 5 o'clock. So
I need people to understand that when Seth pitched this to Forrest and I, he was like, yeah, and we're thinking like everybody can give like a little presentation at the beginning about the topic of their choice. We were still discussing like the format of the thing. And I'm thinking about this. I'm like, okay, like, so how long are we talking? How long of a presentation? And Seth's like, I don't know, maybe 15 minutes. And I was like, oh, no shot. No shot. Not a shot that happens. But I think you'll do quite well as long as you either tranquilizers or like a large cane, you know, that they used to like pull people off from back in vaudeville days. That would work as well.
Well, it's a weird show to try to prepare because normally it's like planned chaos with everybody. We sit down and somebody throws something out and it just catches fire. And so whatever the blueprint was, whatever was in the bullet points or the notes just goes out the window and we sail off into even a more interesting place. And so I don't know I'm going to be as surprised as anybody else.
It's a live show. It's a live show. You can't control what happens in a live show. There will be banter. It's just watching the three of us banter live. So if that's something you're interested in, or if you like I don't know if we do like signings or pictures or anything like that. If you want stuff that's like signed, bring that.
Well, I
Come
mean, it's
on.
Oklahoma. You're in Arkansas. And so to speak about evolution, as you do on your channel and as we often do here on the line and elsewhere, it's still a tough sell. We got, and now we still have Oklahoma, but really we have Texas and other parts of the country who are shoving the Ten Commandments back into proposed legislation. What was the state that has just now made it mandatory for all high school students to have the Ten Commandments and, or at least biblical studies in their curriculum? And I'm like, holy shit, Adam, Eve, Noah's Ark, Moses, Abraham, Jesus, the Virgin, Mary. How is this happening? I thought years ago, Erika, I thought we were moving upward, like we're growing more and more secular, more and more science-based. The information economy is all around us. Certainly we will evolve. And I feel like we're just hitting reverse and going back to the dark ages. Is
The
it
way
just me?
No, it's not just you. I mean, so location undisclosed, but my alma mater was Arkansas, and at my old alma mater, they just instituted Ten Commandments there as well. So this happened at the university too, and there were rumblings. I haven't checked this myself, right? But the rumblings around the campus was that they put the Ten Commandments up, and they were like, we're going to put a little guard there or something so no one comes and like defaces them. So we're like paying our tuition dollars are paying to guard the Ten Commandments that nobody wants there in the first place. I mean, I was part of the email chain. I still got a lot of old emails, and I was part of an email chain that was like, hey, FYI, like this is happening. Just keep cool, guys. This is going to go through the court system, but just like keep a wide berth or whatever. Cause like, obviously it's incendiary. You know what I mean? It's not like, I don't know, Seth. The way that I have to compartmentalize this mentally is that it's two steps forward, one step back. When I look at the polls of science acceptance for the area of my choice, which is evolution, things are going in the right direction. That is one tiny, itty bitty, teeny tiny silver lining about the entire state of things in the United States right now, is that more people accept evolution than ever have before. And this is a big change that's occurred really over the past 20 years after staying stagnant for 50. So it's like, okay, well, that's a good thing. The problem is the science denial seems to have shifted from anti-evolution to like actually more harmful things: anti-vax, anti-climate change, like transphobia, like all this stuff. So it's not like the science denial has gone away; it's just gone somewhere else, right? So this is a battle that we're always going to have to fight. I think all we can really do is do our best and buckle down and settle in for what's about to be like a pretty big fight across the states, I think.
I'm speaking in Calgary in May and going back to Sarnia, and I was thinking, I'm tempted to ask for asylum. Like, hey, Canada, do you have a couch that
Yeah.
Natalie and I can sleep on? Do you have room for 2 dogs and a cat? And then I was informed that there is a right-wing surge in pockets of Canada. They call it Maple MAGA. And they are straight up like, they are almost like Bible Belt, white bread, corn-fed, red staters, but they're north of the U.S. border. And it just blew my mind. What's this happening? How's this happening?
I mean, it's an infection, right? Like and I know that's like dehumanizing language, but it's hard to feel at this exact moment in time. It's hard to feel a lot of empathy for people who are pushing this, given what's going on right now. Maybe I'll come back around to it, but it's like, we're this ideology, this way of thinking. And when I say ideology, I mean like nationalist, xenophobic, pretty racist, although they wouldn't outline it as that, pretty sexist, obviously trans and homophobic. Like this is really taken root in the United States, and it's been allowed to sort of like reach into these other areas and fester there as well and grow. I mean, there was a problem in Germany recently, in Italy recently, and up north in Canada and in some South American nations where people are just feeling empowered to like hate again. And that's, I don't know what you do that. I mean, or what you do with that. I mean, there's part of me that says, you want to match that with compassion, and that's how you pull people over. And then there's part of me that says compassion doesn't do anything when they're killing people in the streets.
Yeah.
And so it's like, I don't know.
It's the classic dilemma, right? When we are playing by the rules and they don't give a shit about rules, and then they're well funded by the oligarchs. What in the world do you do? And then it becomes a much messier dilemma. Like, do we have to become lawless then because they forced our hand. And these are moral dilemmas that I don't necessarily know the answer to, but we have these very difficult conversations. What happens if, they are making up that Orwellian narrative from the Ministry of Truth to tell people that something that did not happen happened and vice versa? What in the world do you do if you're playing nice, or at least playing with honor? And
Yeah.
I'm just like, I don't have a solution. It's interesting too about the Ten Commandments. I read a survey by, what was his name? Dr. Stephen Prothero. He was a religious studies professor. This is 15 years ago, but he had a survey in a book. It was called What Americans Think They Know About the Bible but Don't. It was something along those lines. Most Americans can't name even half of the Ten Commandments. And I would assume that's the case with everybody who is in one of these Ten Commandment states. So then that's a revelation that, number one, it has no real application to their life. Two, there's nothing that might be good in the Ten Commandments that doesn't exist previously or somewhere else. Three, the Ten Commandments are reductive. And four, this is just about marking territory. Really, they put the Ten Commandments there and they're just saying, that's mine. And that's the whole purpose, I think.
Yeah, it's a scare tactic. It's just a way to signal to your base that it's like, okay, we're going to have a presence here, right? That's why they go after universities. That's why they go after places of education, because these are places that they've historically felt like they've been booted out of. There's a paper that I'll send it to you as well, but there's a paper that was released just this week that looked at attitudes of Christian perception of persecution in the United States. And what was interesting about it, and I've only read the abstract, so like I don't know the details, but essentially what the paper is saying is that evangelical Christians in the United States have this immense feeling of self-persecution. Like they think that they're being persecuted more than any other group. And they're able to hyper recognize that when it happens to their in-group. And they like distance themselves from it mentally when the exact same scenario is applied to their out-group, right? So there's this disconnect going on there that is just the oligarchs in power, as you said, know how to reinforce and know how to abuse and know how to exploit to get these people to basically act against their own self-interest. As long as it means that someone that they dislike is being hurt worse, it's fine, right? I don't know, Seth. I wish I had an answer for it. I wish that I knew what to do about this whole thing. But I don't. I mean, all we can do is talk about it, is talk to relatives and talk to friends and talk to families and talk online and make people aware of it. Because you said Orwellian, it is, right? Like we've all seen this recent execution is a perfect example of, we've all seen the videos. All of us. I've seen this murder from multiple angles, as has many other people. And this is unambiguous. This is about as unambiguous as it could possibly get. And there are still people in the Trump administration who are telling us that we can't believe what we're seeing with our eyes. You can't believe it, right? The phone that you can see as a phone is actually a gun. You know what I mean? And I don't know. I think the best strategy is to have these conversations with people, to try and if you can, if it's safe for you, engage in these conversations with folks in your life and talk about how you and people you love are being threatened by this, because it seems like the only time people with this mindset are able to recognize persecution is if it's happening to them or someone they love. So if we can convey that to them, the actual harm that's being done here, maybe we can get somewhere. That's the best I got for the time being.
We'll get to the switchboard in just a second. You reminded me, I'm actually reading a book by the late Gore Vidal. It's called Imperialist America. And he had this line in the opening chapters where he said that American society is largely based on a desire to punish others. And I heard that line and I was like, there's so much of that going on, right? There's a punish the wicked mentality. And of course, then you find people in power who understand that if you invoke the name of God, now you've got divine command theory coming into play. And so many other, people who are in the faith who are primed for savior narratives, right? Once an authority with a capital A has told you what is good, what is evil, who is good, who is evil, then all bets are off and it's war, a holy war. These are scary times. So I'm thankful for you, Erika, and a voice of reason. And you're just so damn freaking funny. You just make me laugh as you make me think. That's a gift.
You give me too much credit, Seth. Mostly what you perceive as humor is just me being self-depreciating, which is fine. That's the goal, But
would you like to speak to some believers and see
I
what
would.
happens?
I want to actually. I want to say this, and now I've become acutely aware. Forrest called it vamping the last time we hosted last Monday. He was like, "Oh, it's when the hosts try to like have a banter while they're waiting for the calls to accumulate." I'm on to you, audience. You guys seem to think that we're trying to buy time. The lines are not full, but there are many lines to pull from. We're not desperate, but that being said, if you want to call, if you want to talk to us about, why you believe in God, why evolution is dumb and stupid, why the earth is actually flat, why vaccines are actually harmful, why climate change isn't happening, why trans or gay people aren't valid, any of those conversations, we are here, we are willing to have them. And on a lighter note, call and tell us about your alien abduction or your poltergeist or your ESP or whatever. I want to hear about that too. It's important to remember in horrific times like the ones that we currently live in that if you don't take care of yourself, you can't take care of anybody else. So you have to have moments of levity too. That's why the meme game in times of trouble is often on fire because we cope with things with humor and with lightness. So call in and have
Such
the
a
fun
good point.
conversations too.
Such a good point. I just released a podcast last week. It's called What's Up with That Wet Dog Smell? And at the beginning of the show, I said, look, we've been talking religion and politics and the world's on fire. And oh my God, right? We're going to take an hour and we're just going to do like general knowledge, fun, dumb shit. And
Yeah.
we did a whole hour on why does your hair turn gray and why do you get the hiccups and what do you do about them and what's up with why you wear your wedding ring on the left finger and is that myth about the heart that goes to has a vein that goes to they call it the vein of love.
Is that true?
That sounds naughty. And
Vein
why
of
do
love.
why do dogs smell like that when they get wet? We did a whole show on that, giving ourselves permission to disconnect because we are not wired for the daily fire hose to the face that we are experiencing.
No.
And then add AI, and now I'm like, what's real, what's not, and how do you even vet this stuff anymore, right? How do you even know what's real? My brain can't take it, Erika.
I don't know. I mean, it's gotten to the point where like if I see a video that's interesting, the first thing I do is I look at when it first showed up, right? And if it's a video that's older than 2020, I can trust it. And if it's not, then it's got to go through multiple levels of scrutiny before I'm willing to accept it.
I saw a compelling video about there was a fox that was trapped under a layer of ice in a lake, and somebody cracked the ice with a broom handle and pulled the fox out. And I was like, oh, what a beautiful story. And then all of a sudden there's a note that says this has been AI generated. Mm-hmm. And I thought, God, it looked real. It looked real. Freaked me out.
Yeah. So some of them are very convincing. And then I saw a video about a gibbon hugging a beagle yesterday, and I was like, that doesn't look like a gibbon. That's not a gibbon. I know you're lying to me. The internet is lying again. Anyways, let's get to these calls. What looks good to you?
All right. Thanks everybody for allowing us. Eric and I could go all day. I've got John dialing out of California. John, let me hit the talk button so you can actually join us. John, can you hear the sounds of our voices? Hello. Earth
Can you
to
hear
John.
Me? Can you hear me?
Yes, now
John,
you're there.
I hear you.
Uh-oh. I accidentally muted my phone. Sorry about that.
You're good, bro.
Still there?
Let's talk. What's on your mind, my friend?
Okay. I want to discuss the living God. Why nature is the only real God. You wanted good arguments for God, so that's what I'm going to try to do. Okay, so first I want to clarify what I mean by the word nature. When I say nature, I'm not just referring to the earthbound definition of nature, the birds and forests and oceans and natural stuff here on Earth. I'm referring to the universal definition of nature. Nature comprises everything in the universe, the stars, galaxies, planets, everything, as well as all of the natural phenomena here on Earth. That's the definition of nature I'm going with. Okay. Now, to prove that nature is the only real God, I want to discuss the most important attributes of the God, what a God is, what qualifies as a God. First, I want to clear up one of the most common misconceptions about what a God is. A lot of people think a God must be a supernatural being, but there are well-established concepts of God that don't involve a supernatural being, and an obvious example is Spinoza's God. Spinoza rejected the supernatural God of the Bible. He believed that nature is God, and Albert Einstein believed in Spinoza's natural God. But I'm not here to discuss Spinoza's God. I'm just using him as an example to point out that a God doesn't need to be supernatural. Still there? Hello? Uh-oh.
Yes,
Yeah,
we're here.
we're still here,
Oh,
semi-conscious and ready
okay,
for the
I'm
next
sorry.
few lines. So you've obviously are
Okay,
working
okay,
from a
okay.
prepared
Sorry.
statement. What's your point or question?
No, you said you guys wanted an argument for God. So now, and I was just pointing out that a God doesn't need to be supernatural, or do you disagree on that? Do you need,
John,
I mean,
or can I move on?
Can you, well,
Okay,
but
okay,
actually,
next.
yeah, hold on though. I do take an issue with that because, like, I typically, when I hear the word God, and as I tend to see it described, at least with relation to religion, is that a God has some form of agency, right? Some form of agency or supernatural
Right.
influence on the world. Otherwise, how would we distinguish it from just, from aliens or something like that, which isn't necessarily a god, but it is something that could theoretically have an immense amount of power over us and an immense amount of agency over our world. So how do you define God in a way that includes basically how are you defining God in this argument that you're about to pitch to us?
Well, okay. Well, I'm going to be pointing out the most important attributes of a real God. I'm going to go down the list, pointing out the attributes of a God, and we'll get to agency in a little bit. So let's not get ahead of ourselves, okay? So, first of all, a real God must be scientifically proven to actually exist in reality rather than fantasy. Supernatural gods, like the Christian God, have never been proven to exist. They're imaginary. But nature obviously exists. We can see the sun, the moon, the stars, all the natural phenomena here on Earth. Nature in the universe obviously exists. So, we've proven that nature exists. Now I just need to prove that nature qualifies as a god. So now we're moving on to that. Okay.
Okay.
Next, I want to point out another one of the most important attributes of a real God. It must be scientifically proven to have created everything in the universe.
Nope.
The Bible claims that
No, I'm going to stop you right there.
Hello?
I'm going to stop you right there. I'm sorry. There's no prescription. There's no requirement for a God to have created everything in the universe. A God could have been an uninterested God who created one thing or three things or nothing. So that's a huge leap. There's no requirement for that.
Well, for me to believe in a real God, it created everything in the universe. And the point
So
is
you've
that nature
decided
did create
arbitrarily that
What?
it's more satisfying for you to believe that a God created everything, but it doesn't mean that that's a requirement to qualify as a God.
Okay. Can I move on or no? Or
I mean, how much more do you have? We're interested to a degree, but if this is a 25-page prepared script, I'd rather have a conversation. Okay.
Well, I'd like to add too, John, right? If your pitch here is going to be, I describe God and define God as this series of forces that are powerful and influence everything, that's fine. You can call it that, right? But that's just you sort of assigning a label to a collection of forces that are in fact quite natural. Like what you call it doesn't really matter to me, anyways. Although I would argue that colloquially and for the purposes of being understood, which is kind of the point of language, it's a little bit inappropriate.
Well, it appears that like 2.5 billion Christians and maybe was it 2 billion Muslims? They think of their God as the creator of the universe. So it appears that maybe Seth doesn't believe that a God needs to be a creator of the universe, apparently. But that does seem to be a pretty important attribute, that a God created the universe. And Christians believe that their Christian God created the heavens, the earth, and mankind, at least according to their Bible. And I think basically that's what they believe.
Hold on. Hold on.
If you don't believe that.
Hold on.
Yes.
Hold on. You said just a few moments ago that a God would have to be able to be proven scientifically, but the supernatural gods exist beyond the ability to prove them. Then you invoked two supernatural deities from Christianity and Islam.
We're talking about what a God is, what is considered to be a God, what would qualify
I'm not interested
as a God.
in what people think. What I'm asking is, you're telling us why there is a God and what that God's attributes are. And then you referred to 4.5 billion humans on earth who think that a supernatural God exists, which you just admitted does not. What does that have to do with your position?
That the natural God created the universe? What?
Let me back up.
It seems kind of
Let me back up.
kind of a
Let me
silly
back up.
argument.
Let me back
Okay.
up. Is there a supernatural
Okay.
God like the Abrahamic God of Christianity, Islam, and Judaism? Does that God exist?
It's never been proven to exist. That's the problem.
Okay. So then why invoke Christianity and Islam's belief in that God to buttress your position when you just admitted that that God has never been proven to exist and there's no reason to believe in him?
Isn't that kind of an odd argument, Seth? That's, in other words, part of what a God is that it is the creator. It's like the one true creator. And
Erika?
I mean, are you just defining God as like a primary origin? Like would you define
No,
like the
no,
natural forces as God? Like what? Like, to me, I don't know,
No,
John.
no,
To
no,
me,
no. Well,
this
no,
is a
the
tough
problem,
sell for
the
me.
problem is that the problem is you're like interjecting a bit too much and stopping the argument before we even get all the way to the most important
John,
stuff, which I
John,
figured that
this show is a conversation, right? Like, this show is not meant to be like a like you show up and give your sort of spiel, right? Like, I mean, it is in a way, but not if the spiel takes 10 minutes. You know what I mean? Like, it's meant to be at least in part a back and forth, but one that's biased towards the host, since that tends to be the nature of a call-in show.
Right.
And if you're building an argument on a
we've
foundation and you're constructing the foundation on a fallacy, we have to jump in before you build the rest of the structure. That's fair, isn't it?
Okay, what's the fallacy? What's your fallacy, Seth?
You are leaning
What's the
into
fallacy?
a supernatural deity that you just said does not exist to prove or buttress your claim that a God exists. That's all I'm saying.
I'm sorry, my Doofy, my dog's in the way. Doofy, move over here, buddy. I'm sorry, my dog was in the way. Please say it again, Seth. Sorry, you were saying somehow. No, in other words, yeah. In other words, I'm trying to build an argument, and you're like shutting the argument down midway through. If we can continue on, and we are having a conversation, you're just interjecting your thing, and I'm just.
I'm going to give you some rope. Go ahead, John.
Yeah.
Opine.
Thank you. What's that? Okay. Okay. So, but I guess we can
Flip to
agree
page
that nature
3,
did
paragraph 2, second line. You've got it highlighted in yellow. Go ahead. I'm ready.
Okay. So I suppose we can agree that nature created the universe through natural processes and natural forces, created the stars, galaxies, planets, etc. Nature also created life through natural processes such as abiogenesis and natural selection. So anyway, nature is the one true creator of the universe. Okay, so next I want to point out several other important attributes of what a real God.
Hold on. I'm going to mute this call for just a second. Erika, I don't know how far to take this because I sense the audience is about to stick a fork in their eye socket, and I want to be a good steward of the viewership here. Do you have any thoughts? What do we do with this?
I am drawing a picture of what I think Doofy the dog would look like right now. If I'm being completely honest, this is how far I've gotten.
It's Doofy the dog.
I think he sounded really cute, and that made me really happy, and it actually garnered a lot of goodwill for me towards John, our caller here. Okay. But honestly, my problem with this is I think fundamentally there's not a terminus here where we're going to be able to have a conversation, because you and I disagree with him on, as you said, the foundations. I disagree with how he's, excuse me, defining God. you disagree with sort of the fallacious nature in which he's equating his version to other supernatural, ostensibly gods that we already know of. So I'm not sure that maybe we phrase it this way. Maybe we're not the right people for this call. Maybe he should call back in when somebody else who's maybe more philosophically minded.
Philosophically minded, yes. John, we are inclined to perhaps pass you off to someone who has all the time in the world, unless you can put an exclamation point on it for us.
Nope. Thank you for your time.
Appreciate it. Take care of Doofy. Little precious Doofy. What a
Doofy
sweet
sounded
puppy.
so cute. At first, I thought he was like tweaking out, and then when he was like, "Oh, sorry, that's my dog," I was like, "Oh, okay, that's fair enough." I do that with mine. I did kick mine out. And
how do
also
your dogs do in the snow? They do okay?
You know, we have two. I mean, you know my dogs. I've got a golden retriever, a King Charles Cavalier, and a boxer mix. And our golden and our Cavalier both have long fur, so they're fine in the snow. But our short hair boxer mix, she's freezing. Like she goes out there and she's like shivering. And we get her. She hates sweaters. She doesn't like the booties. So like it's easier to just open the door and like let her in and out as quick as possible. But the real problem we've been having is because we got over a foot of snow, as I'm sure you did as well. Like you can't see where our back porch ends, like where our back porch is level with the grass. So like, and it's wooden slats, and you can't see where it ends and where the grass begins. And our dogs, at least the Cavalier and the Golden, are kind of stupid. So they go out there and just shit directly on the porch. Like they've been pissing and shitting directly on the back porch. And like the snow's gonna melt, and then there's just gonna be doo-doo and like urine on the, which is gonna be irritating for me to have to deal with. But other than that, they're mostly doing fine. We have to wipe their paws because otherwise the snow clumps in the long fur of their paws and in between their toes. How's sweet Linus?
He's such a good boy. Linus and Gracie. Linus is about this big, right?
I know.
And so I came up with a plan where I've got a tarp, 10 by 10, and I lay it out right before the snows hit, right on the
Oh,
doorpost.
smart.
And so, boom, we have a big dump of snow, and then the dogs have to go out. I pull the tarp back, and there's a
Grass.
pristine, perfect 10 by 10 square. And I'm like, that is your yard. That is your spot. And they go out and they do their thing in this little spot for however many days we need. I feel like a genius.
That's brilliant.
It is really brilliant.
It's better. That's better than my solution, which is just be mad.
Let them shit on
about
the
it.
porch.
Just let them shit on the porch and be mad about it.
Plus, I mean, if the snow is stout enough, Linus doesn't weigh very much, so he'll actually hop up on top. Well, 8 inches of snow, he's an 8-inch dog, so he'll like walk and then shunk, and he just disappears. I could lose my dog in a snowdrift, and that would be tragic. How did your dog die? He walked on the snow and disappeared.
We still don't know where he is. Yeah, Fred, our Cavalier, he's big for a Cavalier. He's actually huge for a Cavalier. His mother was 13 pounds. Seth, he's 30 pounds. He's over double the size of his mother. And like he is overweight. That's true. But he's not overweight enough for it to explain the 30 pounds. Like the vet says he's a little overweight. He could lose a pound or two, but that's still over 25 pounds. So he sort of just mows like a tank, where he's just like trundling and the snow is like a wake around his face. But he's that sweet spot where it's like he's not going to disappear under it, but it's like barely above his little withers. I don't know.
Points for trundling. Great word.
Yeah.
Great
well,
word.
if you saw him, you would know that's what he's doing.
He's trundling.
Like, that's the only way to describe his movement style.
I'll give you a quarter for that one. Let's go to Renee dialing in out of New York. Renee, you're on with Erika and Seth. Are you there?
I am. Can you hear me?
We can. Welcome. What's on your mind?
Oh. I was just listening to you talk about the dog, and I thought that was kind of cute. I'm a cat person, actually, so.
Cats are great, too.
Right. Well, I'll get right to it. I'm not sure if you all have ever broached this topic. There's a possibility you haven't. But let me start by saying that the you that you think you are can never embody this consciousness about the Creator, the Most High God. So you are a spiritual being. You've probably heard this before, having a human experience. Have you heard that before?
Yes.
Hello?
Yes, yes, I've heard that.
And
We are
yeah,
spirits inside mortal shells, and one day our spirits will move on. Yes.
you simply have a case of mistaken identity. You are spirit. You are a spirit. You are spirit. You are a soul. This body is merely the shell. So the mistaken identity is thinking that you are this flesh when you are not. Although
Renee, if I can interject quickly, do you have any experience in Scientology? Because this sounds like Scientology, right? Our inner Thetan or spirit has been trapped inside a mortal outer shell and has forgotten its true nature. And so therefore you go through an auditing session or system to be able to remove engrams so that you can then rediscover your own spiritual self, even godhood. Are you familiar with the Scientology model?
None of that. Never heard
Does
it.
any
Never
of that
studied
sound familiar? Like we've forgotten that we are spiritual beings trapped in a mortal shell?
Yes, that sounds pretty good. Absolutely. Yeah.
Okay.
But I don't know how far they take it.
They take it pretty far.
Lots of religions have. Do they really? They don't quite get to the crux of it, though, do they? Because otherwise they would have a solution for the problem. But
before I hand it, I want Erika to weigh in because she's much smarter than I am, and she's much more entertaining, and that's why she's here. But let me ask you this question. How did you come by this knowledge? How do you know that we are spiritual beings trapped in a mortal body and we've forgotten our spiritual nature?
Well, I don't want to give my entire life history, but I'll be 65 in a couple of weeks. So I've been around for a little bit. And I have 2 doctorates. One is in scripture or biblical interpretation, and the second one is in advanced spiritual studies. So it took me 40 years to get them both.
From where?
Go to anyone's university.
Did you go to seminary? Did you go to Kent Hovind's trailer in Colorado? Like, you don't have to give me I don't want you to betray, too much personal information, but to say I have 2 PhDs is a massive claim. And then you were talking about theology degrees. So are we talking Bible school here?
No. Set in front of no professor, no school, behind any computer. It was all downloaded from the creator and sustainer of all mankind, the Most High.
Okay, so you got your diploma from on high, is what you're saying.
I have 2 doctorates.
Okay. From where? And God gave you the doctorate. Is that what I'm hearing?
Both of them, yes.
Both of them. Okay.
It took me 40 years. I started at about the age of 24, and now I'm 65 nearly.
So did God give you a full ride scholarship, or did you get a Pell Grant? I mean, how did that work exactly?
Well, I know you're being funny, but first of all, it's not God. Let me start over with that. I'm never going to say God. You're going to hear me say the creator and sustainer of all mankind, God Almighty, the source of all life, because there are many, many gods. And I'm not speaking about the little g's. I'm speaking to the main creator. That's, and I say his name like that because I am reverencing him. And that's part of our problem. We don't reverence him. When you hear pastors stand up in the pulpit and say, God this and God that, I'm against that. I don't even listen to that. I don't really even go to church. I want to be unchurched because there was not necessary for me to do that. So
hey, Renee,
we are spiritual beings, yes.
Would you mind if I had Erika jump in? Maybe she'd like to at least.
I do have some thoughts.
Of course not.
Renee, so would it be fair to say that from your perspective, what we actually are is this sort of ethereal soul, this being that's just inhabiting the body, and that when we die, that soul is going to live on, go somewhere else, become something else, and so on and so forth. Is that a fair characterization of at least part of your perspective here?
No.
Sorry
It
to
is
cough.
not.
Okay, can you
No.
tell me then what the soul is?
The soul is pure Christ consciousness. I know that people throw around the word consciousness, and that was defined in different dictionaries by someone who was, I'm going to throw out another phrase here, walking in the flesh and not walking in spirit. But all consciousness is Christ consciousness and only Christ consciousness, creator consciousness, the Most High God consciousness.
So is what we are borrowing some of that sort of hive consciousness, and that's what's keeping us moving, and then when we die, we give it back?
You are a spiritual being. This flesh, this body, this carnal man, this vessel, this vehicle, this meat suit, this meat crayon, this house.
Okay, hold on though, Renee, because I think I'm having trouble understanding your perspective here. So what you are and what I am, if when we die, what happens? Like when I die, does my personality live on?
When your flesh dies?
Yes, when my flesh dies.
Okay, so you will never die because you are spirit. Your flesh is
for my
just
body
a
then.
house.
My body. Like if I were to just to be absolutely over the top, if I were to like hug a nuclear weapon and then set it off, and like my body is
Yes.
gone, it's vaporized, what happens to me in your perspective?
You as spirit, you live forever.
Do I
Now,
remember
you can stay in
my
one place
physical
or the
world?
other.
Do I remember
Do you
being human?
remember? Yes, that denotes me going into past lives and things like that, which you may or may not believe in reincarnation. But this earth is just a school. It's just a
Okay.
school for you to. Does that make sense? It's a
Have you
school.
read
So you go,
hold on. This is reminding me of a short story called The Egg. Who is it by? The Egg by Andy Weir. I didn't know it was Andy Weir. Are you familiar with the short story The Egg, Renee?
am not, no. No.
The concept, it's a short story about a guy who dies in a car accident, and then he finds himself face to face with like the creator, right? Or what he perceives ostensibly as God. And God basically says to him, sorry you died, like it sucks or whatever, but are you ready to go again? And he's like, what do you mean? And then the God character is like, well, you're going to have to live the life of every human being that has ever existed, and then you'll be sort of like on my level, like the level of all of us sort of celestial beings. And the idea is that, as you said, Earth is a school, it's an egg for us to learn how to be to reach a higher level of consciousness or whatever. That, to me, what you're saying right now sounds like that.
Well, I'm writing that down. It sounds very interesting. I might look
It's
it
a
up.
cool
but
short
no,
story.
I've never heard of it.
Yeah, it's
Okay.
a fun short story.
Yeah.
But is that ringing true at all?
Well, I guess sort of like Scientology do, because everything is connected. So I'm not going to disregard, just totally disregard things. Everything is connected.
Okay.
Yeah, I'm sorry, I got to take a drink here.
So let me, Renee, let me just, I'm gonna say this, because again, I'm having a little bit of trouble. I don't know how Seth is feeling or how our viewers are feeling here. I'm having a little bit of trouble pinpointing the specifics of what you actually believe here. So instead, I'm gonna come at this. I'm gonna tell you why I have a hard time believing that souls or the spirituality of humans does exist. For me, right, what we are is, as far as I can tell, limited to the bodies that we inhabit, and that includes our brains, right? And the reason I say this is because there is nothing set apart from humans, like that we're able to measure or clock, that when we die, there's nothing that leaves. Brain activity seems to cease, and then we seem to cease along with it. If you damage or impact the brain in any severe way, like if you get a severe concussion, or in the case of the classic example is Phineas Gage, you get like a big piece of rebar blown through your frontal lobe, it completely changes your personality, right? Meaning what we are and who we are doesn't seem to be seated in some kind of ethereal place that's separate from our bodies. It seems to be our bodies. We're sort of emergent from the chemicals and electricity that goes on in us. Otherwise, you wouldn't be able to impact the essence of you by changing your physical body, right? Like there wouldn't be a medical explanation for changes in personality, like glioblastomas or whatever, right? So for me to buy that a soul is something that exists, there's got to be some kind of indication that either we live on after we die, or that what we are, the essence of what we are, is dually separate from the physical body, and no matter what you do to the body, that part of you stays consistent, right? There's got to be some kind of way to tease this apart, scientifically speaking. I know that's like lame edgelord or whatever, but like there's got to be some indication that there's more to it. And as far as I can tell, there isn't. I'm willing to hear examples like where you disagree, right? Like I'm down to talk near-death experiences or evidence for reincarnation or whatever. I've just not been convinced by any of that so far. To me, it seems like at present, what we are is our bodies. Does where I'm coming from make sense?
I can see that, yes.
Okay.
However, what if I clarified a little bit more about the you that you think you are in the body? So your brain is like your sensor that's for your flesh, your body, but you're probably aware that your heart has an electromagnetic frequency that's 5 times greater than your brain. You can look up the Google or on YouTube. So that aura that you feel around you, like when somebody comes into your spaces, it's like, this person is really shitty. I don't like being around them. Or when you love someone, that feeling, that aura, that's that electromagnetic heart frequency. The spirit man and the heart frequency are what I'm speaking about. It's totally separate from the body and that mind. So does that make any sense to you? Because there's a scripture that says, if any man be in Christ, he is a new creation. This spirit man who functions with the power of that electromagnetic heart frequency is totally outside. Well, outside.
Hang on, Renee. Hang on. Hold on.
Go ahead.
Are you a Christian, Renee?
I am a believer in God. Yeah, you can call me a Christian.
Are you a Christian, Renee?
Mm-hmm.
Are you a Christian?
Yeah.
Okay, you're a Christian.
I believe in
you hold to
Christ
the Christian
Jesus,
God,
yes.
Which is why you just read from or invoked scripture. This is the first time you've spoken about a theistic God with a proper name assigned to a specific religion. Previous to that, you've been speaking in very broad, general, nebulous terms about some spiritual other. This is a huge left turn for us, right?
I am speaking about the creator and sustainer of all mankind. That's who I'm speaking about.
Yeah, the Alpha and the Omega, Jehovah Jireh, the beginning and the end.
Everything.
Yeah, I get it. But you are a Christian and you're telling us what you believe. What we're asking is, how do you know?
Because
and I was given 2 PhDs by the creator and I'm 65. It's not going to work for us. How do you know?
I also want to hear the answer to Forrest's question, but I do want to point out, I Googled in the background when you were talking about the electromagnetic field of the heart versus the brain. I didn't know that. You're right. The electromagnetic field generated by the heart is significantly stronger than the brain. It makes sense,
That's
right?
What
the
I
heart
work out of.
But the heart, right, it makes sense because the heart is a muscle that has to keep you alive for all of the years that you were alive, right? I mean, it quite literally supplies oxygen to your entire body for every moment that you're here, right? When your heart stops, you die.
It does so much more. That's the thing. It does so much more. It works in conjunction with spirit.
Well, it works in conjunction with a lot of stuff. Your body is, you're an organism, right? Like all of your organ systems work in conjunction with one another, that they have to, or else you die. What I'm asking for is, like, when you say the electromagnetic field of the heart is way stronger than the brain, cool, but I think to myself, that's amazing. What does that have to do with the spirit, right? Like, the electromagnetic field generated by the heart is necessary because the heart is beating all the time, right? It needs that. That's not surprising to me, right? The sinoatrial nodes and things of this nature. It's been a while since I took gross anatomy, but like it has to keep eating. It makes sense that that electromagnetic field would be stronger than the brain, which is not a muscle. It's not doing anything that requires it to constantly be active in mechanical motion, right? So what does the strong electromagnetic field of the heart have to do with the spirit?
It works in conjunction with.
How do you know that?
With spirit. With you. For that, I'd have to show you, but I can spend a couple of minutes talking to you about walking in spirit, which is something you can do on your own if you so desire.
That also sounds vaguely naughty, this thing.
Walking in.
I'm more interested in how you know the things you are claiming. Erika's question still stands. You can tell us how to walk in the spirit, blah, 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 but we have to go back to the foundation. And what I'm hearing is mostly just a claim, a series of claims over and over. So as the clock ticks here, Renee, how do you know these things about your spirit?
Because I walk in spirit.
Yeah,
can I give you one minute?
That's tough for me though, Renee. Right?
No?
That's a tough deal for me because right, like when we host these calls, right? When we host these call-in shows, the idea is people are coming in to tell us about an argument for something that they believe in or to, convince us of something. That's the idea. The idea is that people call in because they believe something, we don't believe in it, and they're trying to convince us that that is the case. You can't do that if your argument is exclusively anecdotal experience, right? Like you're talking about walking in the spirit. That's cool, but how can I understand that? Right? The point is to make an argument that will convince someone else. Anecdotal accounts can theoretically do that. Like people come on and share their anecdotal accounts all the time. And if they share an account if someone came on here and shared some kind of spiritual account that there was literally no other explanation for, we could have a conversation about that, right? Typically we go through them and we try to break them down from a skeptical perspective because this is a skeptical channel. But you're not going to convince Seth or I, which again is kind of the point of the call, of your perspective here if all you can bring to the table is, I just feel that it's true. I'm walking in the spirit. I received my 2 doctorates from God, right? Like we can't vet that, right? We can't check into that. There's no way for us to understand that outside of you just telling us, and that's not going to be convincing.
I received it from the creator and sustainer of all mankind. There are many gods and goddesses, pagan idols. I don't.
How does a Christian get around "Thou shalt have no other gods before me"? That's a whole other conversation. Renee?
Yes, pagans. Okay.
Yes, Renee, you've been very kind. Thank you so much for the call. I wish you the very best. I think we're going to move on. Have a wonderful afternoon, okay?
You'll revisit this. Don't worry.
All right, we'll see you later. Take care of yourself. Okie. All right, I have to say this before I say anything else. You just called me Forrest.
Did I call you Forrest? Sorry, Seth. I did 9 hours with Forrest on Monday. I'm a little bit scrambled. Cut me some slack.
Hang on. Hold on. Hey, Siri, text Forrest Valkai.
He's going to be so irritated.
Erika just called me Forrest Valkai on the line, comma, you bastard.
I didn't use the last name, did I?
How dare you speak to your son that way?
I just said it. I should hear from him very sure. You bastard.
Seth, the amount of time that I've spent with Forrest on this show is literally an order of magnitude more than I spent with you. You've got to cut me a little bit of slack here.
It's awesome. No, it's awesome,
also,
actually.
Can I point out that Renee promised us we would be visited? And it was a little bit, Renee, if you're listening, I'm sorry if I'm misconstruing you here, but it sounded a little menacing. She was like, you will be visited. What are you going to do if you're visited?
That's a good question. Here's my question. And I always reference Dr. Julian, his last name. Is not Mussolini. It was like Julian Mussolini is not his name. Not his name. But it'll come to me probably 5 minutes after the show. But he's got a book. You can look at it, buy the book. Fuck, I'm going to do it right now. Hang on. The Soul Fallacy. Dr. Julian Mussolino. Thank you very much. It's called The Soul Fallacy, What Science Shows We Gain from Letting Go of Our Soul Beliefs. Now, it's a pretty thick book that's written by a neuroscientist. It's a deep dive. But one of the gists is that people like to talk about the soul as sort of this non-corporeal, ethereal, out there, cannot be seen, touched, smelled, measured by science. Therefore, it's sort of off limits. You can't falsify the soul. And I think that Dr. Mussolino has a great point. He's like, actually, it is a scientific question, because let's say that the soul existed beyond the brain, right? Let's say you're a mind-brain dualist. You're still talking about an interaction of the spirit with a physical flesh of the brain, the physical tissue. You would be able to see sort of an insertion point of your soul identity charging into the physical brain, which should be measurable in laboratory conditions, I would think. Erika, does that jive with you, the scientist?
It does. There's a book. It's changed its name because the author picked the original name, and the original name is unfortunately occasionally used historically as a slur. I'm trying to remember who it was by. Let me see. Hold on.
Hang on, while you're looking this up, Forrest has just said, how could she possibly confuse us? One of us is a tall, skinny white guy with dark hair and a deep voice, and the other is a tall, skinny white guy with dark hair and a deep voice and glasses. We're practically polar opposites. Good point.
Yeah, to me, all the white boys look the same to me. What can I say? Mary Roach, that's who wrote it. The book was originally called Spook, as in spooky, but then there's some connotation to that, so she ended up changing the title of the book. It's about the science of the soul, and I thought it was a really interesting book because what she does is she basically sits down and she's like, okay, she's a pretty popular science communicator or like pop sci writer, and she just goes through the literature and the history of like us studying the soul. And 100 years or so, maybe earlier than that, I think maybe it was like 1600s, scientists were trying to figure out the weight of the soul, right? Because there was a period of time that lasted for a very long time where scientists were just like men of God who were like moonlighting as scientists. Like they lived in areas, they had a lot of extra time, they lived in abbeys and whatever, and so they did science on the side. And so the science of the soul became this outlet for them. And the way that they did this was they would place people who were on death's doorstep, like with tuberculosis or whatever, on a scale, and then they would weigh them as they died, right? Like they would be like, okay, moments before death, here's how much they weigh. Okay, here's how much they weigh, and then they croak, and then they're like, okay, here's how much they weigh now. And the idea was they would come up with the weight of the soul, because once the person died, the soul would leave the body, and then the body would become slightly lighter. Part of the problem is that when you die, you often like excrete things. You poop and pee yourself sometimes. Organs fail. You breathe out your last breath, like all sorts of stuff goes on, which sort of explains the discrepancy between your weight before and after your actual death. But the case in point being, people have tried from the very beginning to find some kind of natural way of investigating the soul. And if it's not something we can investigate using science, right, we sort of reach this impasse, right? Like it becomes something that you just kind of have to buy into. And I'm not the kind of person, I don't think you are either, who finds that particularly convincing. If I am, as Renee said, visited, maybe I'll change my mind. But at present, I just don't think that there's any good support for an external self. But I'll have to check. Would you say Mussolino?
Mussolino, Mussilino,
Check that out,
or whatever. Just look up a book, The Soul Fallacy. Again, he's super smart, much smarter than me. So as I was going through it, we were prepping for an interview years ago, and I was like, Jesus, I'm an idiot compared to this guy. But I was able to track and follow along. By the way, you just reminded me, when you were talking about cadavers and the weight of cadavers, it was brought to my attention just last week. This is knowledge I needed and did not know I needed. There is a device called the AV plug that morticians use on cadavers before they are displayed at funerals. The AV plug, A and V stand exactly for what you think they do, and it sort of screws into the orifices in your body to make sure you do not leak during the ceremony. I did not know. And if you Google image search it, it looks exactly the way you think it looks. Erika, are you familiar with the AV plug? Have you seen it?
I'm familiar with the AV plug, and I'm also familiar with I don't know the official name for them, but there are little contacts with tiny spikes on them that they sometimes put on the eyes of people, like very closely after, like when the funeral occurs. Open casket funerals occur very shortly after death, because you can still be firing, right, as you're dying, right, and as even for a while after you're dead, and your eyes can fly open, which will scare people. So they put the spiky contacts on to hold the lids in place so that you don't jump scare everybody at your own funeral.
Awesome.
So yeah, you got to keep the gases from leaking out. You got to keep the muscles from twitching. It's a very, I mean, death and dying and then being dead is a very messy business. I'm a big fan of cremation.
Yeah, me too.
Just because I don't want to scare everybody.
Well, a friend of mine wants to be where they take you and they put you at the base of a tree root or whatever, and then you fertilize the tree and then they put it in somebody's garden. I thought that's kind of romantic. I've heard there is water cremation where they actually are able to use cold liquid to somehow cremate you. I told Natalie when I go, I want to be useful. So I've asked to be, this is tongue in cheek, to be part of the bodies exhibit.
Oh,
And
I know
so
the
they
bodies
just
exhibit. Yeah.
tour me all around the world. I'm like, I'm not going commando. I want shorts, right? I do not want a skinless penis out. I want shorts,
Yeah.
and then put a tennis racket in my hand, and I will just like, be in mid swing. And then when I'm near Natalie's house, she can go out, wave, hi, honey, good to see you, miss you lots, and then I can go on and be displayed and be useful elsewhere. So that's kind of my last.
My husband wants to be poorly taxidermied. Like he wants to be taxidermied, but he wants it to be bad. And he said he wants it to be in the house, right? And because he's like, it's your last wishes, so you can't say no, right?
Awesome.
So we'll see how that goes. I don't know. Maybe I'll give it a shot myself. I told him I wanted a skeleton. I would like the skeleton, but the skin and I don't care for the skin very much.
That's a thing. There are like rituals, funeral rituals, where they will, like one guy, there are photographs online. He was a big sports guy, football fan. When he passed, he was prepped before burial, though. They put him in a football uniform with a helmet. They took him to his house, propped him in a chair in the corner, and then they had like a big party and watched a football game with the dead guy in the football uniform in the back. That's a thing. People do that.
We cope in weird ways, man. Depending on where you're from, depending on how you view death, we handle it. Humans are weird with death. Actually, critters in general are weird with death. They say, when I worked at the vet clinic, we used to say, like, if you have more than one dog and the dogs like each other, you kind of, it's good form to let one of your dogs, like if you end up having to put a dog down, like let them see the body so that way they understand what happened. Yeah. I can't speak to what's actually going on in their noodle with that, but what I will say is that death is weird, death is funky, and I have to plug my computer in because...
Before I get to Braun and Pascal on the switchboard, you knowing primates, are primates conscious of death? Like, I know they grieve, right? But I mean, does a gibbon, does a rhesus monkey, I mean, I don't know. Can primates beyond the human primate get philosophical, do you think?
I mean, it's so hard to know. We're not in their heads, right? And we can ask them to a degree, but we can't really ask them, We're also just different types of consciousness, right? Like neither is really better or worse, but there are different kinds, right? That being said, I think it would be absurd to propose that other primates don't understand death to some degree and don't understand the gravity of it, right? There's this famous picture of, well, actually, I'll give you two anecdotes here. One is from Frans de Waal from one of his ethology textbooks on apes, right? He studied chimps and bonobos a lot. And one of them was on, this chimpanzee who's very near death, right? He's getting ready to die. Actually, I can't remember if it was a he or she, but the chimpanzee is getting ready to die. They're very sick. And the other chimps will come and they're grooming them through the night, through the cage, right? Because they know they're on death's doorstep. And when they die, the chimpanzees come and they very quiet. I don't know if people don't know a lot about chimps, but they're not very quiet, right? They're very loud like humans are. But they come and very silently groom and investigate the corpse, and then they leave. And then once all the chimps have seen the corpse, they take it away. If it happens suddenly, they freak out, right? Like there's a different anecdote in one of de Waal's books where one of the chimps was pretty healthy, but one day he basically drops dead. I can't remember if it was like an aneurysm or an embolism or whatever, but the chimp is kind of just sitting on a log and he's minding his business. And the way that they knew something was up, that that something was about to happen was one of the other chimps in his group comes up to him and looks in his face, and he gets really close to his face, and then he just starts flipping his shit, freaking out, screaming. Everybody else comes over, and within minutes, the other chimp drops dead. Right. So it's like they know something weird is going on. There's a famous picture too of a site in, I think it's in West Africa, at a sanctuary where one of the chimps died, and they put the chimp in a wheelbarrow because chimps are heavy to take it away. And the whole time that they're pushing this wheelbarrow with the dead chimp in it and a blanket, over the chest of the chimp, all of the other chimps in the enclosure are up against the fence, dead silent, watching. Right. Like, and I don't know what you call that other than reverence, right? That seems anthropomorphizing it, but like chimps are curious and they investigate things all the time, and they're not quiet, right? They're loud. Like, it's only the very weird particular scenarios where they're like, they recognize that there's some kind of gravity here. There's some kind of weight to whatever it is that's happening. They behave weird about death. Very, very weird. Elephants too. There was an experiment that I actually think this is kind of cruel, right? But we didn't know at the time, where it was an elephant enclosure, right? And the elephants all knew each other really well because elephants are really sociable. And they'd done experiments and like ethological or behavioral work with these elephants for a long time. So they had all these recordings of the elephants vocalizing at each other and engaging in different things and whatever. One day, one of the elephants dies. And so the researchers wait a while, and then they decide to see what would happen if they came back and played the calls of the dead elephant for the rest of the elephants to see what they would do. And so they did. The other elephants were minding their business. Again, I can't remember how long it'd been, months, years. And they hide a speaker and they play the calls of this dead elephant. And all of the elephants, just like with the chimps, dead quiet. They start walking over to where the speaker is. They're investigating with their trunks. And then they're just like exhibiting just extreme anxiety and apprehension and fear because one of their dead relatives is talking to them from a bush.
Wow.
Right?
Wow.
And these behaviors are slight, but they're familiar to us in ways that are, I don't know. I think I find them very disturbing and unsettling in a way that really pulls us back towards this sort of animal kingdom of unity. And I say it's disturbing because to so many people, we tend to place so much weight on our way of doing things. But as I always say on this channel and on my own, what we do is really just an exaggeration of what everything else is doing, and only in specific ways. So I would say, long story short, yes, I do think that they understand death to some degree.
Well, if you will allow a humble brag, I had the honor of interviewing Franz de Waal a year before he passed away. He died in 2023, and he was kind enough to join me on the show. And he was talking, you spoke about elephants, and they had these exercises where there were like tasks that had to be done. And you want to talk about different personalities. So they had the elephants, two of them side by side, and they're supposed to be pulling a log or something.
Yep.
And one of them was clever enough to be like, oh, shit, if I act like I'm doing some work, this guy's going to do double, and I'll just coast through the exercise. And it was amazing because I was like, holy shit, we're not the only species with slackers.
Oh, yeah. We're not the only species with slackers and liars and schemers and schmoozers. I mean,
Yeah.
And it makes sense. Like, first of all, I cannot believe, I did not know that you had interviewed Franz de Waal before. Franz de Waal is a hero of mine. I think he was just an absolute icon, right? I mean, just because of his science communication, which is what I aspire to be, is somebody who can explain the science just like he does, but also his academic work. He really and truly, just like many primatologists before him have, Goodall and Hurdy and Galvicus and Fossey and many others, he changed the way that we think of other primates and thus changed the way that we think about ourselves. I mean, he's the first guy who brought bonobos, the peaceful apes, as they were typically proposed, sort of to the public consciousness. And he's the one who, when he published Chimpanzee Politics, allowed everybody to kind of realize just how similar chimpanzee behavior is to us, and really, and I think this is the better way of thinking of it, how similar our behavior is to them. What we're seeing on a grand scale here right now with the Trump administration, if I may, and de Waal, when he was alive, made this same exact comparison. Trump is just a big bully chimp. He's a big bully chimp trying to take an alpha position, and those ones never last long. The tenure that they hold on the troop never lasts long. And while they're in charge, the troop always suffers. Because good leaders are mediators. They're not bullies. Anyways, I don't know. We can learn a lot.
Are those, let's call them hashtag alpha males, even though I'm using alpha as a caricature here. Are they often, does the tribe eventually get fed up and be like, fuck that guy, and then before you know it, they're overthrown in some horrible way? Or what?
Oh yeah. I mean, that has happened. That is the scenario that befell, if memory serves, Frodo, the G group, the classic Jane Goodall. This guy was just like an absolute asshole to everybody. He hated her. Like all the chimps were really cool with Jane until Frodo came into power, right? And he was just a menace. But I mean, bullies, whether they're leaders or whether they're just like rude, they don't tend to do well. One of my favorite examples of this is in mandrills, right? So mandrills are a type of ground monkey. They're like Rafiki from Lion King, right? They've got the big, pretty faces and the big, bright red butts. And they're very dimorphic. So males are like 4 times the mass of females. They're huge. They're the most sexually dimorphic primate and one of the most sexually dimorphic animals in the animal kingdom, period. And so the females live in these groups of like 800. They call them hordes, like a goblin horde. And then the males come in every time it's like mating season and they try to like woo the females. Anyways, Jessica Setchell, who's a mandrill researcher, talked about this one case where it's like, this male mandrill comes in and he's swinging his weight around and he's not schmoozing, he's coercing, right? So he's like trying to put himself on a lot of these females who are not into it. And it's like, he's like 4 times their size. So you'd think that this would be something that would be sort of easy for him to do. But the problem is there's 800 females. And so what ended up happening is a bunch of females, closely related ones, mobbed the male and they killed him. They killed him. There was a case earlier maybe 2 months ago of bonobos, the so-called peaceful apes, where a male in the group was threatening one of the female's babies, had sort of been being rough with this kid a couple of weeks earlier, or not weeks, I think it was hours. I think it was actually like very shortly before. And a group of 5 females attacked the male and proceeded to dismember him. I mean, they were vicious. They bit his testicles, they bit his fingers, they tore at his eyes, right? Like all the places that are sensitive, and they know that these are the sensitive places. Basically to say, we don't tolerate bullies here. We don't tolerate violence towards our kids. And this is a lesson that I think we as humans could learn from our cousins, which is that it's like, yeah, you can have a leader, but leaders who are cruel can only hold on to that power by fear. And it's an illusion because there's way more of us than there are of them. And other primates know how to utilize that to their advantage, and we've forgotten that.
Sometimes you got to go for the eyes and testicles, don't you?
That's it.
You just have to. Absolutely.
You just got to bite them.
You just got to go. You got to do it. Before I get to the next call, by the way, you and I could just talk all day. I just love listening to you speak.
Please.
Coming up later today on The Line After Dark, the Sunday show, rather, it is Forrest Valkai. Shit, he's back. And Shannon Q. I would pay big money to have Shannon call him Seth during the broadcast tonight. And then tomorrow night, Skeptalk, 6 o'clock Central. It's Aaron Adair. And, oh, looky, it's Erika back for more. I've got Chewed Gum, Alyssa Lube, and Taylor S.H. That is the 27th. I've got the Hang Up with Matt. And is it Jovan? Jovan? Forgive me, I haven't been introduced yet.
Jovan?
Pardon me?
I have also not been introduced, but I think so.
Yeah, it's Jovan.
Jovan, please forgive me, and nice to meet you. And then the Transatlantic Call-In Show coming up with Ben and Luxander. That is Thursday nights, and it's all right here on the line. So make sure you subscribe, support, share, let everybody know it's here. It is a welcome dose of sanity in this insane world. Are you ready for the next call, my friend? I have, looks like an agnostic and an atheist. So if there are people who are God believers, if you're spiritual, if you want to talk about, explain, or defend supernatural beliefs of some kind, we will give you priority on the switchboard. So have your people call our people and we'll talk. I've got Braun out of Canada. Is it Braun, B-R-A-N, or Bran?
Bran.
Bran, my apologies.
Hello.
Welcome. You're on with Erika and Seth. What's on your mind?
So I listened to your discussion with Renee on the nature of the soul, and I have a bit of a different perspective. Can you hear me? Okay.
We can.
Yeah. So Yeah, I don't believe in Christ consciousness or this kind of existence of the soul, like this dualistic thing where it's this some kind of energy that exists separately from the body. But are you familiar with this perspective of I think it comes from Carl Sagan, where he says we are the universe experiencing itself and coming to know itself.
For just a little while. I have heard the quote, yes.
Yeah, yeah. How do you feel about that? How seriously do you take that?
I'm going to let Erika go. You got any thoughts?
No, Seth, I was going to let you go first because I was looking something up in the back. You go first, and then I'll build off of it.
All right. Well, he's asking about, I believe it was Sagan who said, we are the universe experiencing itself for just a little while. I'm paraphrasing, but I think that's pretty close. What do I think about it? I actually think Carl Sagan was a poet and one of the great storytellers of science. There's nothing that is necessarily supernatural or spiritual or anything other than us rooted in the natural world. The elements of our universe are existing in us. We are star stuff. We are existing in this present form for a finite amount of time, and then we are reincorporated into other parts of the universe. I think that's kind of magical. That's what I took away from it. What did you take away from it, Bran?
Well, the more I think of it, I think, well, who is we? It's just there is just the universe. The universe seems to me that it really, everything just started in the Big Bang. Then there is just one thing. There's just a universe, and it seems like we're different people, and we have different lives. We have different brains, but we're actually just little bits of the universe that are and jiggling around, and we're trying to understand ourselves. But when it gets really acute, when we think about the multiverse, or we think about how big the universe might be, and when there's a theory called eternal inflation, where you consider that the Big Bang probably produced far more than the visible universe that we can see, produced a just uncountable number of visible universes like our own, and that means there's almost certainly different versions of you elsewhere in the universe. And then the question of, well, who are you really? Who are you in this vast universe? And what does that mean?
Who am I?
Am
Well,
I making any
I'm
sense?
Seth. I'm 6'1". I like the color blue, long walks on the beach. Stings, Nothing Like the Sun album. I don't know. I'm sorry. I'm being facetious. Erika, you want to jump in this time?
I am gonna jump in.
Okay, go ahead.
Okay, I was jumping in for a good reason.
Okay.
The chatters were coming at me for my one chatter was coming at me and it's fine. I'm not mad about it. For my claim about the purpose of the spiky contacts, I did say recent funerals. Like if you have a funeral right after you die, before rigor mortis fully is like complete and then over with, then twitching can happen. I linked a paper, so anyways, I can't stand being wrong, and if I am, I gotta own it. For our caller here, I've heard a lot of really interesting arguments from physics about like the eternal self, right? Like multiverse stuff, recursive universes, whatever. Like the idea that it's like we continue on in some way because after we die, give the universe long enough, heat death will occur, and then eventually things might bounce back, and sort of Roger Penrose type thing, where the universe will re-kickstart itself. And because this happens infinitely, the odds that this exact universe will happen again are effectively 100% because of, over vast amounts of time, everything is inevitable. And it's like, I hear stuff like that, and I find that to be appealing in some senses, right? There's something very beautiful about the eternal nature of things, but these are hypotheses, right? Like whether we're talking about Penrose's cosmology or whether we're talking about, quantum immortality or whatever Kurzgesagt video we're using as our jumping off point here, or just the eternal nature of the things that make us up because things get recycled and reused. All of that is romantic and all of that is wonderful. And some of it might even be true, right? Like, I don't know about the nature of the recursive universe. I don't know enough about physics to say. Like I said, it's attractive. But at the end of the day, we're still learning so much about all of these subjects. I don't think we can really say with any certainty that it's like, okay, this is actually what happens once all is said and done. There is beauty to the idea that, like, the truth, I should say, that the elements that make us up and the atoms that make us up will continue on in some shape, form, or fashion, right? Like, things will decay, but things that eventually all of the matter in the universe is what, like, equally separated out, dispersed, and then that's the heat death because it's absolute zero or whatever. Possible. Maybe heat death is how it all ends. Probable. And then it's like, oh, well, the atoms that make us up are still existing. So in that way, we're still here. But I don't know. Like, I guess for me, those are plausible ideas, but they're not set in stone. And so I wouldn't hang my hat on them. I don't know. Is that kind of sort of ish what you were getting at? I was kind of musing.
Yeah, no, I'm not going at this from a dogmatic position where I'm trying to cling to like a fixed position. But if for me, when you mentioned the Andy Weir story, the egg.
Yep.
That's when I think about Sagan and when I think about the universe and like what we are, like that story just kind of rings true for me. Not on a level, not on a supernatural level, but just on a level where it's like, yeah, we are just one thing. We are just one thing that's bound together by physics, and we're just little parts of that thing jiggling around and interacting. And yeah, it's just the idea that the self is an illusion. The more we wake up and realize that we're just part of this physical thing called the universe, then the less important the self becomes.
I mean, to a degree.
I don't know. Does that make any
forgive
sense?
me, Erika. No. Go ahead. I walked on everybody. I walked on Bran and on Erika at the same time. Go ahead.
So did I. We were all doing it. Bran, you go first, and then Seth will go, and then I'll go.
Oh, I think I was done. Yeah.
Okay. All right.
I take the message of that story really seriously because it's like it's not. I don't think of it as a supernatural doctrine. I think of it as just kind of a metaphor for the way the universe works.
Well, I really do like the spirit of what we're talking about here. It's a sense of cosmic humility, right? Where when I was a believer, I thought that I was divinely designed and created and destined and adopted by the most important and powerful being in the history of history. And one day when I died from this temporary planet, I would be given a mansion and a crown and jewels and all these things, A lot of believers like to talk to non-believers like they are the arrogant ones. You just want to be God. This is one of the apologetics that they throw at us, trying to, I don't know if it's an apologetic. It's certainly a discrediting of the witness or an attempt to. But it was when I left the faith and I began to see my place in the cosmos. I am star stuff. My life is finite. There may be no tomorrow. That has given me a dose of cosmic humility. And I realize the universe doesn't care, right? And that's okay. It is the way it is. Now, what I want to avoid, and I know you don't mean this, but for anybody watching or listening, we understand that there's no reason to be arrogant about our existence. But I do think it is important to value ourselves, right? There is a tendency, especially in higher control cultures, religions, etc., where you are supposed to die to self. I like the idea of saying, no, I am alive. And I do have value, and I'm going to be who I am, and I'm going to love who I love, and set goals and achieve things and stand for my values. And I'm just going to maximize the moment, carpe diem, for the finite time that I have here. And that does have value. And if it doesn't have value to the universe or anybody else, it has value to me. So I certainly, I know you didn't mean it this way, but for anybody watching, I don't think that the goal here is to devalue our own lives. But I think it is to live with cosmic humility that the universe is going to do what it does. Am I off base here, Erika? I know she's going to agree with me. Come on.
No, I mean, no, I'm gonna agree. The stuff that I wanted to add was related, but I think what Bryn is getting at here in part, and this is why you were talking about the egg, which like I said earlier, I also like the story. And the idea is that it's like, if you are everybody, then when you harm someone, you're harming yourself, right? So we should treat each other with kindness because we're all made of the same stuff. We all come from the same place. And in the case of the egg, we are quite literally the same thing. So like, any message that's going to bring about more compassion, right? Like I can get behind that, at least hypothetically. Yeah, I mean, I find cosmic insignificance to give great meaning to my life, right? Like if this is the only one that you've got, then you might as well make it worth it. You might as well make an impact. You might as well leave it better than you found it, right? I want to correct myself. Somebody in the comments earlier had mentioned, and I know I'm violating my own rule by checking chat sometimes. You're not supposed to do that. But when I'm talking about Roger Penrose, right, and this idea of like a recursive universe, like I don't think that impacts cosmic insignificance at all, because for all we know, this is it, right? Like even if it happens again, it's not really, well, it's you, but it isn't, right? And we're the sort of dynamic pattern of a bunch of different stuff existing at a given point in time and space, which is like in and of itself very romantic and very cool. Penrose's model, I'm not like trying to talk trash about it. Like as far as I know, it's a viable model. I called it a hypothesis earlier. I shouldn't have done that. It's a model that does have some evidence for it, that has some experimental results that support the idea of like a brain cosmology or a recursive universe or whatever. But so do a lot of different models for the cosmos. We don't understand as much as I would prefer about the universe that we find ourselves in. And that's wonderful. And that adds a great amount of meaning to my life, is the search to understand it better. I would love to know all there is to know about the universe. But at the same time, if I did, well, what would I do then? Right? If there was nothing left to learn, there's something a little bit empty about that too. There's a beauty in the struggle when it comes to learning, I guess.
You'd be
I don't know.
V'ger.
I'm just musing at this point.
You would be V'ger, like to know all that is knowable, to learn all that is learnable, and then you would want to join with the creator. And then you would disappear and the movie would be over.
No, yeah, there it is.
Yeah.
Dang, right. That's the end. That's you don't want to approach the end of the plot, because then the game is done.
It's true. You need a destination. Bran, any thoughts on this, my friend?
That was really good. Thanks, guys.
I appreciate your call. Be safe up there in Canada. Okay.
I'll try.
All right. Take care of yourself. I'm supposed to give the phone number if somebody would like to dial in, especially if you are spiritual, religious, a God believer. That number has disappeared because I can't see the screen. 720-619-2288, or the web link is in the description. We await your wisdom. Okay. Forgive me if you would. I'm going to trundle. I like that word, trundling. So we had one of those navel-gazing conversations. Go ahead. Are you going to... Like trundling's a word, right?
Yeah. I'm opening my mouth. I'm over here gasping for breath, looking like a fish in a fish tank, because I just want to like say why aren't we getting any creationist callers, right? Like we have this show in part to give people an opportunity to defend their perspectives. I've been begging. This happened on last Monday too. Like there's just been an absolute, I think dearth is the right word. I think dearth works here. There's just been a dearth of theist callers for us today, as there was on last Monday. So I'm asking, if you've got a perspective that you want to defend, call in and let's talk about it. I think it would be fun. Seth and I are so nice. We're not mean. Really, we're total sweethearts. We're not gonna be rude.
I've seen a trend though where we start off in this sort of deep, vast, turbulent pool of the random and unnamed spiritual, and then someone will say, and then the Bible says, and I'm almost like someone hit me with a bat. But before I go to the next call, and while I see another one queuing up real fast, we had this exercise, we were just talking, and I want to know what you think. Okay. So we were talking about the AB plugs and the corpses and all this stuff. All right, fine. If you could know today, if you could know the date and the manner of your death, would you want to know that?
No. Take me by surprise. Take me by surprise. I don't want to know. This is going to come, I know this is shocking for people to hear. I'm a very neurotic person and I'm a very anxious person. And so because of that, if I knew, it'd be like an anvil hanging over my head all the time. When I get like vaccines and stuff like that, I look away. I'm like, don't tell me when it's going to happen. I don't want to know. Right? I want to be, I'm like Linny with the rabbits, right? Take me out back to tell me we're going on a nice trip. Let me have the best day ever. And then what I want death to do is hide it in a treat, like a dog taking its medicine. Yeah. I don't want to know. I want to know, and I guess that's a little bit ironic because I do want to know everything else. Like I'd be fine knowing someone else's time of death. I just don't want to know mine.
I would be enslaved to it. I was having a conversation with somebody, and they were like, "Why wouldn't you want to know? Because then you would know that every moment between now and then." You're invincible. And I said, that's a mistake, because just because you are alive doesn't mean you are not in a deep coma on life support for 10 of those years, right? I mean, being alive, that's a whole other conversation, but I would be obsessed. I'm going to be 78 and I'm going to be in a car wreck, or it's going to be cancer. It's going to be whatever. It's all I would think about every day, all day. It would blow my mind. So
it's like spoiler alert too. It takes all the excitement out of things. Otherwise, without the no activity would ever hold the same amount of excite. If I'm skydiving and I know for sure that I'm going to be okay, where's the thrill in it? I don't know. Maybe that's silly. I like the exhilaration.
I buy it. The mystery. Preserve the mystery. Want to take a call? You up for it?
Let's take a call. I'm looking, we got 2 interesting calls, but still I'm not seeing any theists. So I'm asking people, I'm over here begging. I'm on my hands and knees. Please call in. If you disagree with Seth and I, call in. I haven't gotten to be fighty with anybody since that one guy on Monday, but he was the only one.
Why were you fighting with the guy on Monday? What happened?
He was like an asshole. He was, oh shoot, what's his name? Inquisitor? Is it Inquisitor?
Imperious.
That's your first clue.
He was a banned caller who used a VPN to dodge and get in.
Yeah, this guy was like impervious to being talked to, right? Like having a conversation with this guy, nothing would penetrate his just endless word vomit. I had to mute him. And I don't like to mute. So, and yeah, I don't know. It wasn't fun. But then it got me like amped up. My heart the electromagnetic field of my heart had expanded to such a degree that I was like wanting to actually have that conversation. And, I kind of got blue balled by the rest of the show. We didn't have anybody else who was that aggressive, and it made me kind of sad.
I'm just saying. Okay. Pascal out of Canada is dialing in. Thanks for your patience. You've been on hold a while. Are you there? Tap your phone. If it's been a while, you have to sort of make it alive again.
Pascal, no! Pascal wanted to...
You have to wake the phone, right? Is that what has to happen?
I mean, yeah, that's usually what Forrest and Aaron and Matt and everybody else I host with says. So you got to.
If you're on the web caller, that's the case. But with a phone number, it shouldn't need to be done.
I guess I'm going to return to Q because I have a feeling maybe Pascal stepped away for a tinkle. Let's talk to Mark dialing in out of Tennessee. Hi, Mark. Welcome. You're on with Erika and Seth. Welcome.
I am on the air. Very good. Let me see. So I wanted to talk about monkeys.
Hey, Mark.
God
Mark,
bless.
Yes.
I'm going to back you off of your phone or microphone just an inch or two. You're distorting a little bit, and I want to make sure everybody can hear what you're saying. Sounds great. Go ahead.
That's fine. Is that better?
You're much better. Thank you.
Okay. All right. So I am wanted to talk about. Well, I'm cooped up right now, and so I'm going to infect you guys with this discussion. I have recently become aware of a fact about monkeys that they did some experiment. Well, not science. Well, experiments in which they determined that monkeys are apparently operate under the principle of fairness. And since we are descended from monkeys, I'm assuming that's where we get this trait from also. I'm assuming that most people believe in fairness. And I guess it might be where the big brother of fairness, justice, comes from. So I'm wondering where is this coming from? Why do monkeys believe in fairness? Why, and I'm assuming that you're going to say I don't know, and so we can end the conversation there. But you got some ideas,
Mark,
about
never
this?
assume that
I
I
would
will.
like to.
There's a lot of things that I will say I don't know about, but if it has to do with monkeys, you're not going to get an I don't know from me. There's one thing on this earth that I claim to know a lot about, and it's monkeys, and it's primates in particular. My master's degree is in primatology, so I am technically, I suppose, a primatologist. So I can answer this question for you. Fairness, or the ability to understand inequality or inequity amongst the group, is most common in social animals. And this makes sense. If you live in a group, being able to tell when you're getting the raw end of the deal here is going to increase your fitness, because you can take action when things are unfair and make sure that you're getting a better deal with whatever it is that we're talking about: best sleeping spots, best food, best priority for drinking water, whatever. And then that's going to lead to better well-being for you and better well-being for individuals who are tightly linked to you in the hierarchy or in that social group. The idea, I mean, it's game theory.
Supposedly the principle of self-sacrifice is also inbred.
Yes.
The soldier that drops on a grenade to protect his other soldiers from being injured, is also kind of. I mean, I'm not. Well, what I've heard is that it's because of the survival of the species. And it doesn't
Mark?
survive the person that drops on the. Yes, sir.
I'd like to go ahead and have the primatologist finish that thought, because I was hanging on that. So the principle of fairness is part of evolutionary fitness. Was I tracking?
Yeah, for sure. I mean, fairness and self-sacrifice. This is sort of, I'm going to weave both of your things here together, Mark, and then what Seth said. When the group is doing well, the individual tends to be doing well, right? But at the same time, within that group, there's competition amongst individuals. So fairness is something that tends to be selected for, and the ability to recognize when things are unfair is selected for, because let's say you're an individual in a social group, and you were getting constantly an unfair deal from the higher ups in your troop. Let's say we're talking about monkeys, and let's say we're talking about a new feeding spot, and we've all found this new feeding spot with a ton of berries, and it's awesome. And there's tends to be hierarchy in social animals too, and so the individuals who are closest to the feeding group are like keeping the rest of us away from it. We can't get in and we can't get those berries. And they're holding their time, and then eventually they back off, and then it's like, oh yes, it's time for us to go in and get our berries. So Seth and I, we, crawl over and we're starting to eat our berries, and it's been 5 minutes, and then the first group comes back and kicks us off the berry bush, right? It's unfair. We didn't get as much time as they did on that berry bush. If we can't recognize fairness, then we're just intimidated off of this bush. We back off, and then we don't get as much food, we don't survive as long, we don't get bigger, we don't reproduce as often, and all of our offspring who lack the ability to recognize that also just either don't exist or don't survive. Now, let's say we do recognize fairness, and we look at this, and for whatever reason, the gears in our monkey brains are turning, and we're like, now wait a second. This really pisses me off, because they've been on this berry bush for 2 hours, we got 5 minutes, and now they're back, and they're kicking us off. And so I start to bristle. I'm upset. Seth sees me upset. He's upset too. And everybody in our little group is like, no, we're not going to be bullied off of this berry bush, because that's not fair. So we stand our ground, we eat more, and then we do better in comparison, or at least as well in comparison to those who are higher ranking than us. That means that we, live longer, grow bigger, have more kids, right? It's a slight fitness advantage that ends up over long periods of time making a very big difference. You can see this if you run the actual equations yourself. And then that characteristic that allowed us to prioritize ourselves and prioritize our group gets passed on to our kids, and so on and so forth. And that cements the ability to recognize that in the group, right? That's how something like this eventually comes to sort of fix within a population. Self-sacrifice is really interesting too, because you might think, like, how could something like that ever fix in a population? Because if you're self-sacrificing and you sacrifice yourself, who's it going to pass on to, right? I mean, first there's the
Yeah,
theme about
exactly. Well, I mean, that is kind of
Yeah.
what, that's the main thing about self-sacrifice, especially.
Yeah.
But I suppose there are
So let
other
me
things
ask you,
that
Mark.
also.
Let's say that you are let's say that you're like a young lady, and it's like in the medieval times or whatever, and you hear about this soldier on the
Okay.
front lines who said, yeah,
Okay.
and you hear about this soldier on the front lines of the recent big battle who put his life on the line for the rest of his battalion, and he died, right? And you're like, man, that really
Yeah.
sucks, and you go on your life, whatever, and you mind your own business. Same situation, alternate universe, except he almost dies but doesn't. He still put his life on the line. He still self-sacrificed. He still almost died for the rest of the individuals in his group, but he didn't. You see that and you're like, oh, okay. Not only is he strong, but he's willing to risk his own life for the people that he loves, like perhaps the children that we might have together, right? You mate with him, and then you pass on that characteristic of his selflessness onto all your kids. Right? These near misses are how these characteristics that are seen as socially popular end up fixing in populations. These are all hypotheticals, right? And we're getting a little evolutionary psychology with it. But what I'm trying to do is pitch a feasible scenario for how things like altruism and selflessness and fairness end up dominating or becoming the primary characteristic within a group. And not only that, but selflessness and fairness and the ability to recognize it don't just make life better for the individual, they make life better for the group as a whole, because people are less resentful. Individual monkeys are less resentful in the case of our vervets from earlier, or just our circopithagoid monkeys from earlier. And so the group gets along much more smoothly than it did previously. A group that's more cohesive is able to more efficiently move around, more efficiently look for predators, right? They're not trying to kill each other all the time. There's less fighting. And so that group that has the selflessness characteristic or the fairness characteristic is going to survive at a higher rate and reproduce more often and leave more progeny than a group that doesn't have those characteristics. And then you take that, and instead of giving it one generation, give it 1 million. And that's how these types of social characteristics come to fix.
If both groups are in conflict, then though, which side is being treated unfairly? That's, I don't know. I wrestle with questions like this, and I'm not sure what, especially what is this? It doesn't make sense when you have people that are fighting over something, like land or resources or whatever. Tennessee has a problem with Mississippi, and that they seem to think we are draining the water table to the detriment of Mississippi. So it's not fair to Mississippi. Is it fair to us? I don't know. And
Well,
again, I'm not sure what.
aren't we all knee-jerky primates? I mean, can we not all be guilty of selfishness and myopia and all that stuff? I mean, I don't think Erika is saying,
Well, yeah.
watch me put words in her mouth. You like that?
Yeah.
That I don't think she's saying that they're all like egalitarians sitting around, smoking their pipes and talking about how they can be perfectly even in all aspects of their lives. I didn't hear that, right?
No, and I mean, what if the two groups in our monkey situation, what if in the first group, the group that was hogging all the berries, what if there's like a pregnant female in that group? And then that group is thinking to themselves, well, it's justified that we spend more time because we were watching out for this pregnant female, right? She needs to eat more because she's pregnant, right? Like that's enormously energetically expensive. And then the second group is saying, yeah, but the rest of you aren't. So why are you also hogging it, right? The perception of fairness can be great for the individual, but that doesn't have any bearing on the objective nature of the fairness of the situation. So in the situation with Tennessee and Mississippi, Tennessee probably thinks that, well, we're higher up on the Mississippi and we need this water for our people. Mississippi's further down, and they're saying
it's not Mississippi water. But anyway, okay.
Yeah. That's what I'm saying though, is that it's like you guys are coming at this from different perspectives because you have different perceptions on what is fair and on what the situation is actually entailing, on what is actually going on. That's in part to tie things into the bigger picture here, which is kind of the point of primatology, is to like take what they're doing and apply it to what we're doing. Look at the divide in our country. Look at the immense schism between people on the left and people on the right now, or I should say at this exact moment, people on the far right and everybody else, right? Part of why this schism exists is because we are literally living in different realities, right? Half of the people that you talk to who are on the far right, like if you ask them about this recent shooting that happened, they will give you a completely different account of what happened or of whatever situation, right? And what is fair can only really be determined if we're both working with the same situation, with the same reality, and we're not. Right? So like with our monkeys, we're talking about a really basic example of how something like fairness could evolve, but that has zero bearing on where that ends up going from there. Once fairness is a characteristic that a species has, and it isn't just primates that recognize it, it's primates that recognize fairness, it's corvids, it's elephants, it's cetaceans like whales and dolphins and things like that. It pops up over and over again in social species because it's beneficial. But humans are like hyper social, and we're everywhere. And so what is fair and what is not is going to be intrinsically related to how we perceive our world, which is not seemingly right now objective.
Okay, I guess I can accept that. I thought we weren't supposed to be talking about politics, so I won't. Thank you for thinking it was important enough. My subject was important enough to talk about. I appreciate it. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Mark. Appreciate you. Okay. So explain altruism again in a nutshell. Why would a primate or any animal sacrifice itself with no overt benefit, right? I'm going to die for someone else. How does that benefit me? How does that let me pass on my genes? What's the story on altruism, Erika?
I mean, there's so many different parts of it that you can tease out, right? Like true selflessness is really, it's a hard thing to define, right? Because even an act that appears completely selfless, the reason you do it is because it feels good, right? Which is in itself a boon for you, the individual. Because altruism operates at the group level, and it also operates at the individual level. And it operates, I mean, you're more likely to rescue or put your life on the line for a family member than you would be for a total stranger. And there's a lot of different levels that this is happening. But the very bare roots, the brass tacks, bare bones of it is that, altruism operates on this basic principle of I scratch your back, you scratch mine. If I help you now, you'll help me later. And we're stronger together than we are alone, right? It's a game theory thing.
I mean, that's essentially kind of where I fall from my layperson's perspective. Even if there's no such thing as pure altruism, all right, it may come back to assist me in the future. We're still acting as if, and we're still behaving in pro-social ways. It sounds like a win-win, regardless of what you call it, right?
Yeah, I mean, I would say so for sure. I mean, and you have to think of it from a perspective of how does this help an individual, and then how does this help the group that individual is in? This is why you don't tend to see pro-sociality in solitary critters, right? It tends to be limited to animals that are living with other animals where pro-sociality is going to benefit them, right? In our berry example, you can imagine that, one of the monkeys in the first group steps back and lets a bunch of other monkeys come and eat while he is also eating. And from the second group, I should say. And then it's like, okay, well, now it's the second group's turn. And the second group is like, well, he let us stay while he was eating, so we'll let him stay while we're eating. And now one monkey out of that entire group is eating for the whole time. They're not having to take turns at all. One behavior. And it doesn't even necessarily have to have a meaning the first time. It could be something that monkey is doing just like in humans because it feels good. And then it becomes an enormous boon. And then every one of that monkey's kids has that same characteristic. We're overly simplifying it, but individuals matter.
I have two more questions before we get to our call that I got to throw your way.
Now, be careful, Seth.
Is it true that bonobos, you mentioned them earlier, are they the ones who, I'm not going to say primarily, but very, very often communicate by boinking each other? Is it the bonobo that does that?
This is what Seth does. Seth tees me up. Like, Seth will just be like, what can I say? What can I say that she can talk about for like 40 minutes? And then he just sits back and rakes in the dough. He's just
magical.
Like,
it's magical. Yes. It's my formula. Yes.
Yeah.
Bonobos. Talk to me, Eric.
Yeah, bonobos are super sexual. We tend to use their sexuality and their promiscuous, for lack of a better term, nature as like a means by which to say they're like the make love and not war ape. But they're also kind of violent, right? They they're actually more violent than chimpanzees in frequency, but when they're violent, they're not as aggressive. Like they're not shooting to kill, as it were. Like they get in more little tussles, but then they settle it. And part of the reason why they settle it is because they boink. Like you said, they boink all the time. Franz de Waal, who we've mentioned multiple times in this conversation, he has a saying in one of his books where it's like, if you take I think it's Franz de Waal, but if you take a cardboard box or like some kind of interesting item and you throw it into a bonobo enclosure, they get so excited and so riled up and so curious about this, but they got to blow off steam. So before they even investigate the box, they'll just have an orgy, human terms for it, but they just don't. They're also like, we know they're also like super gay, right? Like they will have sex along any dyad, along any pair. And the reason is because sex doesn't hold a moral weight for them. Really, it doesn't hold a moral weight for virtually any animal other than humans who put a moral weight on it. But it's just a way for them to blow off steam and feel good and also strengthen the bonds between the individuals, right? So like close friends will boink. And this is female to female, which the official term for it is genito-genital rubbing. And then males will do that too, and they call it penis fencing. Primatologists are a weird bunch. But the idea is that when tensions get high, they have sex to blow off some steam, and then everybody feels a lot better, and then the fight is over. I guess you would call it like they don't have makeup sex, they have pre-fight sex, and then the fight is dissolved, and then they're all fine. It's an interesting sort of comparison to what we tend to see in chimpanzees, who, they just regular fight.
All right, I got one more for you.
All right.
Just indulge me. So we had a caller earlier who was talking about the multiverse. Could there be other versions of ourselves out there? And that's a big what if. And we can navel gaze. Wow, about all of that at some point. But it reminded me of Ken Ham at the Creation Museum when he actually said that if aliens exist, like there's life on other planets, they will go to hell because they are not covered by the redeeming blood of Jesus Christ on the cross in regard to original sin, which came from the earthly Adam and Eve. Are you familiar with this, Erika?
I did not know he had said that about
No, I pulled it up. Hang on.
For aliens.
Hold on. Let me read this. He said, I do believe there can't be other intelligent beings in outer space because of the meaning of the gospel. An understanding makes it clear salvation through Christ is only for the Adamic race, human beings who were all descendants of Adam. But he is saying that if there was another species, they're going to hell. So now you know. You're welcome, Erika.
Well, that's great to know. Seth, did you know that Answers in Genesis, as well as ICR and CMI and Genesis Apologetics, all have variable takes on UFO or UAP sightings, and that many of them believe that UFOs and UAPs, as well as the abductions, which they believe are things that are actually happening. Please call in if you have an alien abduction encounter. I've never gotten to talk to somebody who has. I would love to hear it. But they think they're demons. They think that the alien abductions are not aliens abducting humans, but demons that are abducting them. And in some very isolated cases, if memory serves, the way that they bolster this is because aliens pull people up to probe them.
Yes, this gets us back to the AV plug, I think.
The AV plug,
full circle. Yes.
Exactly, full circle. And what did the Nephilim used to do? Well, in a way, they were also probing ancient humans, mating with the women of the earth. So I suppose the aliens are the Nephilim. They're back. They never disappeared. They're still here. And they're taking people up. And I don't know how that bears on the hybrid conversation or what, but the Phoenix Lights are the Nephilim is the TLDR of it.
Justin DZ from Deconstruction Zone is joining me on the Thinking Atheist podcast this week. And we're having a conversation about the Nephilim. All right. The angels come down and they have relations with these hot human women. And then these giants are born, and we get into the physics like, well, how the hell did human women give birth to giants? I mean, how does this happen? It just sounds...
That's the thing, Seth, is that it's like, it's cool on a fanfic level, because that's what it sounds like. Like, it's the interpretations of what's actually going on is that there are these complicated ancient Near Eastern mythologies, and people don't really give it, they give it thought, but not in a feasibility sense. And then today, people are reading it literally as if these are actual histories. And it's like, there's so many components to it that just don't make sense if you think about it for more than 2 seconds. Like it would make a fun cartoon or like a fun anime or whatever, but women giving birth to the giant-headed Nephilim makes as much sense as the T-Rex eating melons with its giant 9-inch scimitar teeth, right?
Yeah.
And then eating exclusively salads and passing that through a monogastric system. It doesn't square, but it doesn't have to because they don't think about it for more than 5 seconds.
Okie dokie. Darwin is dialing in out of Ohio. Doesn't say
ACA.
theist or atheist. It just says undeclared, which is why I'm taking this call next. Are you with us, Darwin?
Yeah, here I am.
Lucky
I
us.
just wanted to say that I'm glad that you got your channel reinstated. I was a bit worried that
You're very
might
kind.
not be.
For those who aren't familiar, last week, logged on, YouTube had deleted my entire channel. 17 years worth of work representing tens and tens and tens of thousands of hours of production. Yes, I do have backups for much of it. But I mean, we're talking about how many times do you even change hard drives, computers, et cetera, in 17 years? So it's back. It's all good. Thanks to everybody. So, Darwin, what's on your mind? What do you want to chat about?
Yeah, so I called in because of the title of the live stream. Christian nationalism is ruining our country. I have a bit of a script here. It just helps me get my thoughts out. It can be a bit jarring to call in, a bit nerve-wracking. So I'm going to read that real quick. It's not long, I promise. And it ends with a question. I've been a bit of a spectator throughout my political awareness and have been on a hiatus from this domain of consideration for some time now. Recently, with current events in the news, namely in Minneapolis, I've had what you might call a rekindling of my passion for politics. This led me to check out a live stream of a recent congressional hearing where the Secretary of Homeland Security was grilled and praised in a bipolar fashion by the painfully obvious and severely partisan congressional crowd. During the meeting, there was a question about what, in the Secretary's opinion, is the greatest threat to the nation, to which he responded in short, Antifa. With that being said, I've heard the moniker of Nazi being thrown around in relation to the current administration. At first, I thought this was an intentionally inflammatory and maybe just provoking stance taken by the left for the purpose of stress relief. When looking into the roots of Antifa, to my astonishment, I found it to originate in 1930s Germany with the Antifaschistische movement, a nickname of Antifaschistische Action, which then evolved, if you will, into a broader movement by the name of Antifa. As I said before, I'm not very up to date on my politics, too much noise for me to tolerate. However, I just wanted to get the host's takes on why the proclaimed immigration-focused militia ICE, headed by the aforementioned secretary, is focused on an anti-fascist, anti-racist, decentralized movement which was founded in the resistance against actual Nazis. In other words, why is it that the current administration is at least seemingly anti-Nazi?
I mean, they didn't care. They didn't care when the motto was Black Lives Matter, and they were anti-Black Lives Matter. Like they've been mask off for a while. When the BLM protests were going on, they were like, "Yeah, we're anti-BLM," and it's like, okay, yeah, so you're anti-Black Lives Matter. We get it. They don't care about the rhetoric at this point. I really do believe that. I think there was a time when conservatives did care about the rhetoric, when they cared about how they were perceived. I think Trump has done enormous, and I mean Trump as the individual has done an enormous amount of work to make it okay to just be mask off and to say out of pocket shit under the guise of that's just how he's just speaking his mind. He's just blunt, he's just saying what he thinks, and he says it like it is. There's been a lot that has been packaged into that whole idea, and a lot of it is some pretty heinous shit. My answer then for your question, like, why are they so okay with being anti-Antifa and thus sort of aligning themselves with the contra to Antifa, which is what's the opposite of fascism, or what's the opposite of anti-fascism? fascism, the reason they're okay with that is because, quite simply, they don't care anymore. I really believe that. I think they don't care. I think that they know that they can just weaponize the long history of the left, sometimes correctly, sometimes incorrectly, using the word Nazi to describe the right. A lot of the right now, especially since we have an actual Gestapo in Minneapolis and in many other places, sometimes that's appropriate, sometimes it isn't. They rely on the times that it isn't in order to convince their base that this is an inappropriate descriptive term. That and they don't care.
So
That's
like
my
a
two
cried wolf situation.
Kind of, yeah. Except, honestly, the amount of times that it's actually been crying wolf is disturbingly low for how they've been able to weaponize this, or how they've been able to spin it, I guess is a better way of putting it, in my opinion.
I did a presentation last year. We were talking about some of the tyrants, the authoritarians in history. Mussolini's the easy one. This is 1922. He rises to power by saying, I will restore national greatness and I will crush the vermin, right? The enemy from within. This is classic authoritarianism. And so, in order for Trump to be able to use fear to weaponize his base, to rally his support, and to consolidate power, he needs a common enemy. I'm reminded of that political cartoon. There's a guy lying on the psychiatrist's couch, and he says, is Antifa with us in the room right now? Because right now the Trump administration is telling its Fox News base, et cetera, that Antifa is like an actual capital A organization with a headquarters, and they all have meetings and blah, 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 when Antifa is actually, anti-fascism is something really totally different. Antifa being the bad guy supposedly behind January 6th, along with the Capitol police officers, et cetera. This is a fiction that serves them because they have to have a common enemy. I was thinking about that presidential memorandum, which has declared 3 enemies of the state right now. If you are anti-Americanism, anti-capitalism, and anti-Christianity, you can be considered an enemy from within, potentially a domestic terrorist. That's us, right? That's us on some level.
Okay.
And right. So once you've got an enemy to fight against, now you've got essentially a narrative by which you can rally people and consolidate power.
All right. Yeah, it's all coming together. 2 things real quick. One, man, is it true what they say about the comments? Don't read them, right? Secondly, I just wanted to say, what might your average person do about the situations that they see unfolding? I find myself at a loss of like what I can even do about this.
Isn't that the question, right? Erika, what do you think? What are you doing?
Seth is such a good co-host. Seth's always just like, Erika, how about you?
Well, what I don't want to do, like my first
everybody.
inclination as a guy who hosts a show solo, is to just jump in and start blathering on. And I want to be a good steward and make sure that, sometimes I start, sometimes Erika starts. So I'm just trying to be, it's fairness. It's primate fairness that we are experiencing on the show today.
Right.
Yes.
Of course.
Yes,
altruism. It's hardwired into us. Yeah, I mean, that is the question. There are a couple of ways to answer it, right? There's stuff you can do for yourself. There's stuff that you can do for others. There's stuff you can do at small scale, and there's stuff that you can do large scale. I think as far as fixing this in a big way, like actually changing the culture and how we view what's happening now and how we will view it in 20 years, which, as they tend to say, the people who are doing this now, a lot of them will say they were always against it. We know that's going to happen. We've seen that happen. It's going to happen again. It's happened already.
Sure.
It's very frustrating. So I would say that if you want to actually help on the ground, boots on the ground for people who are in places like Minnesota right this second, you can donate, you can organize or be a part of actual grassroots on the ground campaigns where you are, be that for politicians, be that food drives, be that your local chapters for humanitarian aid or humanism or democratic socialism or whatever, for causes that are actively fighting against Christian nationalism, ICE, and the Trump administration right now. So you can actually take your hands and take your boots and go to these locations and help them, whether you're packing meals, whether you're going door to door, whether you're telephoning, whatever. All of that helps. If you want to actively make a difference, you can do that right now. All of us can do that right now. As far as long-term fixes, that's a lot harder, right? In the United States is tough when compared to other nations. I got a really good friend. Actually, one of my best friends is French, and we talk a lot about what's going on in the United States. And she's always very smug because she's like, we don't let this shit fly in France because one thing happens.
Right.
They threaten the pensions by $1 or whatever the equivalent is, and they're burning cars in the streets. Like, the French know how to protest. They know how to exercise that right. And part of that is because of their history. Part of that is because
storm the Bastille, right?
yeah, like part of it, and they've done it like comparatively very recently. Like in the recent past, they are one of the most recent sort of Western nation style revolutions that we tend to teach about. Right after we did ours, they did theirs. So they know how to do it, and they care about that right a lot. But as I often tell my friend, that's not the only thing that matters. France is also small compared to the United States. One of our biggest disadvantages here in America is that everything is so spread out. It's really, really hard to mobilize. And if every person in this country wanted to storm DC in a peaceful protest, in a peaceful march, to go sit on the White House lawn and just occupy until something changed, that's going to bankrupt a large portion of this country. So many people are living paycheck to paycheck. They can't afford to fly to DC. They can't afford to take off work. They can't afford to lose that job. They can't afford the childcare. They can't afford to miss their rent. And so they can't protest. And the oligarchs know that. Part of their way of controlling the working class is by keeping us living paycheck to paycheck. So we don't have the time to protest or to organize or to help each other. We just have to worry about like our immediate family. And it sounds like nefarious, but that's just like literally what is happening. Fixing that is tough. So that's why I say, boots on the ground, grassroots stuff where you are helps. Also, I'm a big proponent of talk to people about what is going on. Do not fall into despondence. Do not let this, if your mental health can spare it, have these conversations. My mom is a centrist. I've been in her ear like an earwig for the past 2 days talking about the murder that just happened in Minnesota, right? Like, because this is a conversation that needs to happen. I know she's getting news from a lot of different places. I want to be one of those places. Of course, she's receptive, and not every person not every family member, not every friend is going to be. There's some real heinous pieces of shit out there who deserve to be cut off. And then there are a million people in between that and those who are right on the edge. There are a million stages of people who are different, varying levels of reachable that some of them deserve to have these conversations because they're being lied to and they might be reachable. I can't tell you or anyone listening where to draw that line for you is though, right? Like you got to take your mental health into account. You have to take your personal relationships and your history there to gauge whether or not people are actually reachable and worth having these conversations with. I can't do that for you. But a really good place to start, and one thing that I've been talking about to people in my life is we are in a post-truth era. We are in that Orwellian can't trust your eyes phase at this point. And so what I've been doing is trying to point that out, because the first thing that a lot of centrists are going to do is they're going to both sides it. All politicians suck. Yes, most politicians suck. But we're talking about the difference between I order a steak and get a hamburger, and I order a steak and someone shits on my plate and serves it to me. It's an order of magnitude that we're talking about here. It sucks. And you have to point that out, right? With what's going on in Minnesota right now, this is a perfect example. And we have to use it at our disposal. We have to say, okay, we have all these videos coming out, right? A ton of different videos from a million different angles. Watch them for yourself. And then compare that to what the Trump administration is actually saying. And then compare that to what the Democrats are actually saying. And you can judge for yourself who to believe and which track record holds here, right? I'm not going to sit here and tell you that the Democrats rock because they suck. I'm not going to tell you that they're always going to make the right decision because they're always making the wrong decision. And I'm not going to tell you that they're great leaders because they're often shitty leaders. But again, we're talking about an order of magnitude difference-wise here, and we have to point out at every opportunity that There is no position from any, and the Republicans and the Democrats need to hear this alike. There's no position that can stand and pass through this midterms that isn't running on abolish ICE, that isn't running on hold people accountable for what has happened here, that isn't running on make life more affordable, that isn't running on end the fascist takeover that's been happening in the United States. If they want our vote, they need to earn it. That's a side thing. I'm rambling at this point. Talk to your friends and family with real world examples and just let them make up their own minds, but you supply what it is that they're making their minds up on. Because there's no way that anybody can look at what's coming out of Minnesota right now without pre-making up their mind that's going to stand. Anyways, I've talked for long enough. I just have a lot of thoughts on this, and I'm just kind of trying to string them together.
Sure. On the situation that happened recently in Minneapolis, you said it'd be hard for someone to not look at that situation and come out with a predetermined, yes, I'm on this side, or yes, I'm on this side. And the other side's obviously wrong. I think Dark Matter recently talked about this. However, with the most recent events, the justification given for the shooting was a weapon on the person. And from what I've heard, the person had, an open carry license. So by all accounts, this should be like, a right-wing, like, injustice. I would think that, someone...
Well, not to belabor this angle, but also the weapon was not brandished. It was a cell phone. The weapon was actually taken by another agent before he was the man was executed. I mean, there's so much wrong, and there are multiple angle video records of all that. So yes, we are. I want to. Eric and I are going to talk just a little bit more, and I'm going to read something that was posted by a fellow activist, and something for everyone to chew on. Before I move on, were there any final thoughts, my friend?
Oh, from me? Oh, from Darwin?
No, from Darwin.
I would like to hear just a little bit more about maybe Seth's point of view on this matter, if it's just an agreement with Erika.
I do have a point of view. Yes, I do. Well, let me answer that post call. And Darwin, thank you so much for dialing in. Appreciate you very much. Okay.
Thanks, Darwin.
Good name.
So I was talking to Natalie about this. It is a tremendously helpless feeling to know that an activated and extremely well-funded minority have essentially executed a decades and decades long plan of a hostile takeover of the Supreme Court, the Congress, and the executive.
Yeah.
The rest of us feel totally helpless, and you can feel the pressure rising. And as I'm watching Minneapolis playing out, many of us, this is not original, many of us are thinking the same thing. Okay, now there is a public uprising, a justifiable outrage and uprising against this. Okay, then Governor Walz and the mayor of Minneapolis come forward, and then do they activate statewide National Guard against the federal ICE agents? And then does Trump decide that he's going to declare war on the insurrectionist and seditious state of Minnesota? And then is there a new civil war? And then the Insurrection Act, and then he negates or nullifies or cancels the midterm elections, and now we're really in Mussolini territory. And all of us are having this oh shit moment. The whole world is going, what the fuck is wrong with the United States? And we're screaming at the top of our lungs. It is an activated and extremely well-funded minority who fucked us. And we are scrambling we're trying to answer the same questions that you are asking now. What do we do? I think Eric is absolutely right. We had a local protest against ICE and all this injustice in Tulsa, Oklahoma, which has nothing to do with Minneapolis. But we were showing solidarity, and there were protests not just nationwide, but worldwide by people who just gave a shit. And the conversation Natalie and I had was this. I want the next generation to be able to look back and see my fucking photograph holding the sign. I want to be able to say I was there. I said, no way. I put myself out there. I was public. I didn't, I just want to make sure that whatever happens, history doesn't see us sitting on our hands. And to you non-voters, in 2024, fuck you too. Yeah, this whole principled stand. I'm not going to play the game because the rules are bent. If you, just a percentage of you, had stepped forward and understood what we were up against, we would not be in this situation. I will be forever pissed at non-voters in 2024.
Me too, but make up for it. If that's you, if you didn't vote and you're thinking, shit, I didn't mean for this to happen, do something about it. Do something about it. Make sure that you're registered to vote. For every election, your ass needs to be in every single voting venue for every local election at the most minute level from here on out. If you want to make up for it, fucking make up for it. You need to be calling your officials when you can, right? You need to be active in how and whatever means allow you to be in your local community to try to make this, to try to gain a little bit of ground, or at least dig our heels in and quit hemorrhaging blood on this whole deal.
Let me read something for you, Erika. And I just want to, before we get to the next call, we have 2 left. No Illusions, who is the host of The Scathing Atheist. He's one of the hosts of God Awful Movies. He's whip smart and one of my favorite people in the universe. And he posted this 6 hours ago. He said, people keep asking, what can we do? The truth is, if we look at the history of it, there's probably nothing we can do. Once a nation puts an authoritarian in charge of the government and gives them all the levers of power, only an outside force has ever stopped them. From a historical perspective, the best we can really hope for is that he goes so far the rest of the world has to stop him through force. Our best case scenario is losing a world war. The question with an easy answer, of course, is what could we have done? And every miserable fuck who couldn't be bothered to vote against him or depress the turnout for that election or undermine the effort to keep him out of power is hiding from that question in every way they can. It would have been easy to avoid this. It was clear as fucking day that this is where we were going. Literally everyone paying any attention saw it. Hell, they put it in book form for anybody who cared to see. We did not blindly stumble into this. We walked into it with our eyes open. I don't know if I go that far that it can be fixed internally. I do find this is a sobering perspective, and I'm not trying. I don't want this, but my gut tells me that it will be bloody before it's fixed. Does that make any sense? I don't know how else to say it. I don't know how to say it.
No, it does. It completely does. I mean, I used to say, well, it's still true, but climate change is the same way, right? And that's going to be, just not for nothing, but that's going to be a major, major loss in all this bullshit, is that we can't afford to worry about the fact that we are so royally fucked with regard to the deaths and infrastructure damage that's going to result from climate change, because we're too busy worrying about the very necessary protection of our own human rights, right? We actually cannot, I mean, you can worry about more than one thing, but one thing is much more pressing than the other for people who are living right now in the United States, and that sucks. And we're wasting valuable time on that. I want to get that out there because I think about that every now and again.
And if I may, I see it in the chat. Some people are like, it's already bloody. Yes, I absolutely understand. What I probably should have said better was bloody on a large scale, like Civil War bloody, I think is the point I was trying to make. So I want to clarify that because, yes, I'm fully aware of the headlines which we've been speaking to. Forgive me, Erika, for the interjection.
No, please. I'm with you. I mean, it is already bloody, but I understood what you were getting at there. I mean, to make an analogy again, you could say the same thing about climate change. We've already lost tens of thousands of people, probably hundreds of thousands have been impacted indirectly worldwide by climate change, by the damage to infrastructure, by the proliferation of diseases in areas that they weren't previously, and so on and so forth. But what I've always said about that, and I probably took this from someone else without even realizing it, is that for people to give a shit about that, it's going to take a lot of people dying before people finally put it into overdrive. Where, as a species, we tend to not prioritize things until it's too late. And so I concur with Seth here that it is going to get bloodier, because we're going to, like, the people in charge are not going to let this go easily. And I find it very hard to believe that there is going to be a way to resolve this peacefully. I also hope that is not what happens. But I mean, executing citizens in the street, it's hard to go peaceful from there. Yeah. You know what I mean? Like, it's very, very difficult. I will say that I think it's a little defeatist to take the perspective that it's like, yeah, once governments reach this level of fascism, they cannot be toppled from the inside. History has been going on for what, 10,000 years? And a lot of that history is not as detailed as it could be. And even if it is this, we don't know that that's never happened. But even if that is the case, then let's be the first, right? We shouldn't go down without a fight. We can't afford to let the people that come in 100 years and 200 years to see us giving up, sitting on our asses and letting people suffer in the meantime. And if we're going to suffer, we might as well make it worth something and try our best to make it as hard as possible for them to cement this bullshit. We owe that to the people who will come after us.
That's it, given 2028.
Absolutely not. Are you
I would
kidding?
run that. I
How
would
about
run
Seth
that.
Andrews 2028?
I would run
Hey,
that.
you should
ticket.
run.
Shit. I am the most all you do is Google my name, and I am already the most unelectable politician in the history of politics.
Not most unelectable, but I am also unelectable for what it's worth. Plus for president, you're forgetting the most crippling fact. I am a woman.
Oh, yeah?
You can't be president if you're a woman. You will literally lose to an actual fascist if you're a woman.
I've got Billy from Texas, who has been most patient. Are you with us?
I am.
Thanks. You're on with Erika and Seth. What's on your mind?
Yeah, I absolutely think you could run for president, and I would probably vote for you. But
I'd vote for
have you do you guys think that consciousness comes is a product of the brain, right?
Yes.
Yes. For us, for all intents and purposes, for what we know of, for animals, yes.
Right. And so you probably see what the call screener wrote. There's a boy that was born without a brain, or actually there's lots of people that are born without a brain, but one case in particular is a boy born with no brain, or he was born with 2% of his brain, yet he has a personality. He laughs, cries, runs, plays. He can't talk, but he has a personality. He clearly is conscious, and he has practically no brain.
If I had to bet, knowing nothing else about this, I would bet that they're defining brain as neocortex. So they're probably talking about higher function, because you can't live with 2% of a pons, or you can't live with 2% of your medulla. These are structures in the brainstem that are responsible for keeping your heart beating and keeping you breathing and maintaining very basal, primitive like functions of the body. So you would not be walking around without those. That's factual. So I would imagine they're talking about 2% of the neocortex, or of maybe the frontal lobe, or some area of higher functioning. And what I would say to that is, without looking into it, I can't speak to the 2%, but it wouldn't surprise me that he was capable of a lot, even with that small of a portion of that portion of the brain, because the brain is remarkably plastic, right? We know this to be the case. It's insane how good the brain is in humans, in all animals, but it's very well studied in humans, at picking up the slack when other areas of the brain are damaged, right? I mean, we've seen people who have had the speech centers of their brain obliterated by a bullet, able to relearn how to talk by singing, and then staccatoing that singing, because the portion of your brain that's responsible for singing is in a different spot than your portion for regular speech production. So you can still sing, but you can't speak, and so then you just chop it up, and now you can talk again. The brain is very, very good at this. So it wouldn't surprise me if somebody was born with a very reduced, higher functioning portion of their brain was able to make up for that in some way. Does that make sense?
Right. Yeah, well, it's interesting because the 2% of his brain that they said that he has is in the what do you call it, the brainstem?
Neocortex? Oh, the brainstem.
Yeah, they said that the 2% of brain that he has is in his brainstem, but other than that, his cranium is empty. It fills up with fluid, and so they have to like drain the fluid out of his cranium occasionally because it starts to build pressure. But other than that, his cranium is empty, which is crazy, right?
Sorry. Yeah, I am looking into this now. So, Seth, I will toss it to you while I read about it.
Well, I mean, I'm not a brain scientist. I'm not even a primatologist. I'm an ex-evangelical Christian radio host. But when you say that someone's brain or their skull is filled with fluid and therefore has to be drained because no brain exists, I don't think that person is alive. So in my mind, I listen to what Erika had to say in response, and that makes the most sense to me. That there are basic functions, bodily functions, and reactive expressions. Those types of things may be part of that, but it doesn't necessarily indicate consciousness at all. So, I mean, and this is anecdotal unless you bring us, the scientists and us being able to get into the specifics of it. I don't know if Erika, you're frozen on my screen. Erika, did I lose you? Disable your camera and then re-enable it and see if that fixes the problem. I mean, it's a great pose, very introspective. It looks like she's actively researching the topic. There she is. She's back with us.
Sorry, my internet shat the bed for 2 seconds.
You are now live and worldwide. Did you find what you were looking for?
No, because once my internet shat the bed, I immediately started trying to read about it. But I will in a second. I found this kid. Does the name Noah sound right? Noah?
Yes. Noah Wall.
Noah Walls, that's it. Yeah, I'm reading about him now. Give me, I don't know.
Okay, yeah.
Banter
Take your
for a minute.
time. I'm reminded of like people who are in a deeply comatose disposition, and they are considered brain dead. My mind goes to Terry Schiavo, but there are many other instances where they say, well, they smile. Well, they react when I say this word or this series of vowels and consonants. Their fingers grasp my finger. Therefore, they are alive. But I think, well, that's not necessarily an indication of what we would consider to be live. They are brain dead, being kept alive by life support, by feeding tubes, etc. This is not an indicator, certainly, of consciousness. So I think this is a very difficult and complicated subject. Erika, did you find what you needed?
I did. So there's this is just so you know, moving forward, Billy, the 2% claim is true at birth, but the very first story outside of Noah Wall's actual website that I was able to find specifies this. When Noah Wall was born with just 2% of his brain due to a combination of rare genetic disorders, doctors told his devastated parents he'd never walk, talk, or eat on his own. Noah's odds of living past age 1 were so slim that his parents had chosen a coffin and were already arranging his funeral before he was ever born. Wow, incredible, right? 9 years later, Noah has grown 80% of his brain and dreams about becoming an astronaut. So essentially, they're linking it to spina bifida, I think, here. Yeah, they're linking it to spina bifida, which means that this is, well, spina bifida and a couple of other things, it looks like. But it looks like his situation is kind of exactly what I entailed earlier, where he was born with a brain that was severely damaged, and that brain and his body was able to make up for that. That neuroplasticity was at play here to actually rebuild and sort of repair what was missing. So now he has 80% of it. He's no longer, I don't know if you would call it hydrocephalic, but his cranium is now 80% full, is what I was able to find on that first story, which makes a lot more sense because 2% of your brain, first of all, it for sure, like if you had 2% of your brain stem, for sure you are not living, right? Like I would love to see that claim. Like if he had 2% of his brainstem and that's all he had for his entire brain, you're not going to survive that. So I'd love to know where you heard that. But regardless, if he was born with his brainstem and then 2% of the neocortex, it is possible with this kid, evidently, for the brain to continue to grow and then to repair itself after he was born, right? And this makes sense to me because we know that the human brain at birth is not 100% its size. In fact, the brain does a lot of its development and growth after birth. This is the reason why when babies are born, have you heard about how babies have a soft spot on their heads? Mm-hmm. The reason is because there is a soft spot. There's a portion where actually, I have a skull for this. Hold on.
Wait. Erika has in her office a baby skull.
This doesn't surprise me.
A replica of one, but it is. So this is, what is this? This is a 30-week-old fetal human skull, right? So you can see it. It's very creepy, but also kind of cute. It looks like a cat. It's very neonatal, big eyes, small jaws, huge head. But if you flip it over and look superiorly, you can see these bones of the front here, once they fuse, this is called the frontal bone, right? And then you've got your parietal bones here, and this is the sagittal suture. Normally in an adult, these frontal bones are fused. This is just a single bone that's really solid. But you can see in this kid, one, they're not fused, and two, there's a soft spot here where there's no bone at all. These fontanelles haven't closed yet. And the reason for that is because if you're trying to push a 10-pound baby out of a very tiny opening, even dilated, you want that brain to be a little bit squishy, right? You want that head to have a little bit of malleability to it, which is why when babies come out, oftentimes they have like little cone heads. So those bones are not set in stone. They're flexible. All of that to say, babies are built in humans to not have their brains fully developed, which in the case of Noah Wall allowed his brain to make up for lost time in that in vitro development. Does that make sense, Billy?
Right. But what I'm pointing more towards is there's other stories about he actually displayed some form of consciousness, personality, crying, laughing, this and that, while he was in a very no brain state. So I mean, if you look into the story a lot deeper, I know that he's grown, his brain has grown, 79%. But during the time whenever he had virtually no brain, he still displayed this form of kind of personality or consciousness. And I mean, I get that, your brain could be damaged and it could change kind of, who you are and how you perform and how you function and this and that. But as far as
let me get Erika in. I'm on the clock, Billy. Go ahead, Erika. Did you have a response to that before we move on to the last call?
Yeah, all I want to say about that is that until we see, like I'm looking at what are these CT scans? I'm looking at 2 CT scans side by side of Noah Wall's brain at birth and then where it is currently. And his brain fills his entire, like the entire cranium. There's gaps in the middle, right? But his brain has done remarkably well. Also, for sure, looking at this CT scan, he has his full brain stem. The 2% is referring to what I'm clearly looking at here as a frontal portion of the brain. Actually, I can probably share my screen. I won't. We don't have time, but I'll link it in chat so you can check it out for yourself. It's he's celebrating his 9th birthday kind of article. As for individuals displaying like full-on personalities with 2% of their brain, I would need to see that, because what I'm seeing right now is that when they first performed an MRI scan, they're shocked to learn that he was born with 2% of his physical brain due to a rare condition called hydrocephalus. I mentioned hydrocephaly earlier, which causes fluid to accumulate in the brain. That makes sense. Hydro means water, cephalus means head. Surely he'd live the rest of his few remaining days in a vegetative state. So surely he would live the rest of, implying he is currently in a vegetative state, meaning eventually he developed his brain enough to perform regular or at least some executive functions. So until I see it, like in a case that you can present to me and so I can investigate it and dig my teeth into it a little bit, I don't buy that someone with that little of their brain is going to be engaging in full scale laughter, personality, walking, speech, things like that. Because everything I seem to see from Noah Wall is that it wasn't until the brain was developed further that he was able to do that.
Thank you, Billy, for the call.
Okay.
Much appreciated.
Yep, thank you.
All right. So this came to mind. I wanted to bring it up. I host a second podcast called True Stories, and it's just like a 5 minutes sort of journey into whatever. It could be weird science or trivia, celebrity news, ancient history, etc. And I was brought to my attention the story of a guy named Jason Paget, and I forget how many years ago it was, but he came out of a bar and he was assaulted. He was mugged. And somebody beat him, I think, over the back of the head with a bat or a crowbar or something. They took his wallet, and he had brain damage. And having exhibited none of these abilities before, all of a sudden he began to draw in very complicated geometric shapes called fractals. And it changed his brain. And he now makes fractal art. And if you want to see something amazing, go to his website. It's, I believe it's pixels.com, or just Google his name, Jason Paget, Padgett. And it's remarkable. I don't know if you've heard that story, Eric.
No,
It's crazy.
I don't think I've heard that specific one, but I've heard similar ones where people who weren't previously musical after like a brain injury are suddenly like a total they can pick up piano very easily or whatever. People with these incredible photographic memories that they got after brain damage. I mean, we know a lot about the brain, but we don't know everything about the brain. I would even say we probably don't know way more than we do know. So I don't know how to explain that kind of thing. I have no idea. I'm not a neuroscientist. I don't know what's going on.
It's so cool. The website jason-paget.pixels.com.
Yeah.
No, it's complicated. It's worth it. Look at it. It's remarkable. You got time for one more, Erika?
Yeah, I got time. Let's do it.
Okie dokie. I've got Pascal, who is still in the queue. We didn't have much luck last time. Are we connected, Pascal?
Are we connected? You tell me, you guys.
I hear
got
you,
you.
Pascal.
Dialing in from
Awesome.
Canada.
Okay,
What's
there
on your
we go.
mind?
Okay. I just been listening to you guys, and I really enjoy the in-depth analysis you guys bring to the table. Actually, I made little notes here about what I wanted to get into, and you guys kind of covered most of it, especially with the other two callers, the last one and then one of the first ones there. But I wanted to get more into I don't know, say the Gnostic text and what the word of Jesus would have been and how that was interpreted, because I find that personally, I know it sucks to start an argument or whatever with that, personally, but I feel a different sense of I don't know, energy cause I'm a musician, hey? So when I present my music, my soul, whatever it be, consciousness, it feels like a literal, I hate to say magic, but yeah, music, magic, whatever, right? So I'm all over the place with my beliefs. So I just want to know what you guys have to think about that, or what you guys can give to me for a better argument, as opposed to saying, okay, there is no God, but I still can't explain what music really does. Even it's a sense of magic, in my opinion.
Is this the part where I say, what do you think, Erika? Or would you want me to jump in first?
No, this is where you go first.
Okay,
Because I got to grab my water bottle anyway.
Okay, I can go first. All right, well,
Okay,
it's interesting.
Thank you, Seth.
I'm going to jump into this idea of, I'll use the word transcendent, that goosebumpy, sort of almost spiritual feeling when you are in a room and you're singing communal music together. And, we see this a lot in very emotive worship services in church. A lot of people are there and I feel the spirit. And it's interesting because scientists have measured brain function when you are in the midst of or a part of communal music, like worship music. And the endorphin rush happens. And these chemicals in our bodies are not just pleasure chemicals, they are also a bonding agent. They actually bond us to our fellow human beings. Dr. Andy Thompson is a psychiatrist who's done a lot of writing about this. But they've also found that you can get the same chemical reaction, that same transcendental, spiritual, emotional feeling in a rock concert or another type of event where you're singing communal music together.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah. So what we're basically experiencing is something that is very, very, very human, but often I think we struggle to find the language to describe the swell of emotions that we are feeling inside. It's like when you see the birth of a beautiful baby, or there's a lovely sunset, or some monumental thing happens. Language often fails us, and we feel so loaded and supercharged with feeling. We're like, what is this thing? It almost feels supernatural. Is that the kind of thing you're talking about, Pascal?
Yeah, for sure. I mean, when you throw psychedelics into play, I mean, it's a whole other world as well. That's what I wanted to get into as well, because I've had a lot of my fair share experiences with, say, acid or psilocybin mushrooms, and that kind of venture into unknown lands, I've done way more growth in spiritual or supernatural, for lack of a better term, right? That kind of growth, more on that than I ever did opening a Bible or going to church or singing communal choir songs at a church with my old grade school choirs and stuff. You know what I mean?
Well, Pascal, hang on. When you say spiritual or supernatural, do you mean that you know that what's happening is a product of brain chemistry? You don't feel that you have left your brain or your body and you are now gallivanting around the cosmos. right?
No, for sure,
You would
no.
be
I mean, a little bit of an
trundling
outer
the
body
cosmos.
experience, yeah, for sure. If that be the case, I would definitely know that from reality. But there are moments where you think like, oh, I'm looking upon myself. But again, more brain chemistry, more neurons firing off, right? And then,
Yeah,
I understand that.
let me jump in
as
again
well, yeah.
quickly. I do have a point.
Yep.
Forgive the interruptions, but I'm trying to stay
No,
on
for
message
sure,
here.
This is why
This
we're here.
takes us
Yeah.
into NDEs, right? Near-death experiences. We see hypoxia, we see chemical reactions in the brain, and people hear the voice of their long-departed grandmother, or they have seen the white light, and they go and they meet Jesus. They hallucinate, those types of things.
Yeah.
I mean, we understand that brain chemistry is very often, if not always, behind so many of the experiences that some people have attached a God to when it's really just a physical
Yeah.
thing. Erika, you going to jump in on this one before Pascal moves further?
Yeah, sure. I mean, understanding something doesn't have to take away the wonder or the awe. We understand exactly what's going on with the sunset, right? We understand how the colors emerge because of the nature of the light from the sun entering Earth's atmosphere at various angles and in various ways. And that gives us this beautiful sunset as the sun moves below the horizon. Understanding that doesn't take away from the beauty of a sunset. It doesn't take away from the feelings that it imparts to us. The same is true with a beautiful symphony, right? Understanding the
Yeah.
nature of something doesn't have to ruin it. I don't think it ruins it. I mean, some people say that it's like, oh, once you explain something, I mean, I think it's a Whitman poem about the astronomer, talking about the nature of investigating the stars and how astronomers in his time investigating the stars took some of the magic from them by explaining them. I don't think that's true. I think that making nature explicable makes it even more fascinating and wonderful. Of course, that doesn't mean we understand everything. We've talked quite a little bit about that today on the show, about how we don't know everything. And there are many areas that we're trying to learn more about, but that certainly not in my lifetime we'll ever get to the bottom of. When you're talking with people about those areas, that's okay to say. Right? Like I talk a lot with creationists usually, the theists sometimes as well, but usually specifically creationists about this, where it's like, okay, if science doesn't have an answer for something, then it can't be known. Usually they'll apply it to something like the origin of life. Why? It's not a failure of science that we don't know something yet. It just means we don't know it yet. I mean, everything we know is something we once did not know that we investigated and learned more about. So I think when you talk to people and they present sort of like a got you to science or philosophy or whatever, that it's like this open question. There's no shame in saying when you don't know something. There's no shame in us not knowing something. It's an opportunity to learn more. So that's what I would add so far.
Am I the only one here who's never done hallucinogenics? Everybody's talking about it, and I'm like,
I haven't either.
What's that like, man? Pascal, I mean, are you
I
flying?
mean,
Are you floating?
Yeah, I'm still here.
Now,
I mean,
describe
it's
a
more or
trip
less-
for me. Describe a trip.
Well-
Give me something.
So it starts with the come up, right? So if depending on your drug of choice, say it would be acid or psychedelics. I mean, acid is a little more controlled, right? So you have the come up, then come to peak. So that's when you have full on what that guy said earlier, fractals, and you have, I don't know, if you're hearing loud sounds or music, you're sometimes the walls will look wavy. It's really different per person. But yeah, when you add music into the mix with loudspeakers, a PA system for the voice, and it can get pretty heavy and very transcendental like that. So that's why I was saying. And yeah, I would not I wouldn't say scary, but I mean, it is unknown, right? And everything unknown tends to come with a bit of a risk or reward, but you come out of it totally reborn, and then it comes back into the Jesus Gnostic of resurrection, right? I always felt like totally new person. I didn't want to say, oh yeah, now I feel addicted, I want to go do it again right away. That was the last thing on my mind. I wanted to take with it and then go with it and grow with it, right? So yeah,
Okay,
I would
hang on.
definitely
Hold on.
recommend it, guys. Yeah,
Hold
for sure.
on.
Go ahead.
Hang
Sorry.
on. All right. So you take whatever the hallucinogenic is, and you don't know if you're going to have the most euphoric and pleasurable journey somewhere, or you're going to be trapped in a bad trip you can't get out of. Are either of those scenarios possible?
I think it would just depend on like your whole like set and setting, right? If I'm gonna do some and I plan to go out into town into a big public area, yeah, I'm asking for a bad trip, right? But like if I'm also like doing it and I do too much or something, like if I'm not concerned, like, oh, okay, I'll just do like a whole like freaking ounce or something, like, yeah, you're gonna freak yourself out, man. And like if you do tiny little microdoses of something, like you tend to not even see anything. It's just like it just fires off again to those little neurological brain signals, right? Like it just fires
Pascal,
off little bits of this and that,
well,
and
let me
like
tell you how this
it
would
gets
go
you
for
to be
me.
more productive. Yeah.
Hang on.
This is
Let me
Sorry,
throw
go ahead,
Erika in
Erika.
here.
Yeah.
Hang on.
Yeah.
Go ahead.
Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah. Go ahead.
This is
Go
why
ahead.
I could never do any psychedelics, because for me, if someone's like, "Hey, set and setting," because I've heard that before, right? Like I've had many opportunities. People are like, "Look, as long as you have a good attitude about it, as long as you don't think of anything scary, as long as you don't psych yourself out, it's gonna be fine." For me,
Yeah,
I
those
would
are
put
like the worst people to do it with.
It's your
Yeah, I know what
default
you
state.
mean for sure.
I would put a tab on my
Yeah,
tongue and
yeah.
I would sit back and I would be like, "Oh man, I sure hope this isn't going to be bad." And then it would be like, "Oh no."
Yeah,
And then
and
it would be
you're
9
free,
hours of spiraling.
yeah, for sure.
Not the
Now,
right,
So
not the
you're
right person.
basically,
do you have to have a
yeah,
guide in
for
the
sure.
room? Like, do you need a
I mean,
supervisor?
I would definitely recommend that, like somebody who's been into the lands a little bit too. But at the same time, yeah, like if you were to do a little tiny bit on your own, just to test your own productivity and your own moods and whatnot, and again, yeah, a safe environment, stable, like you don't have no like I don't know little children running around screaming that can throw it off or something. I don't know, just for example, right? Or like pets and stuff too. I mean, they could go for like a good mix with music at like a good little level, but like at the extent I would be like, oh yeah, okay, let's jump behind the drums, turn on the amps and stuff, which would some people would rather run out of the room, right? Once
I
those
could
things
see.
started
I would
coming
say
into
to
play.
Natalie, please, I want you to watch me. I am going to go into the lands. That's what I would like to say before my first trip. Pascal, before I wrap it up, did you have any other final thoughts? I took us off on a bunny trail, but quickly, do you have anything else?
No, actually, that's everything. I just wanted to talk with you guys, just get some of that out too. I had one more question too, like just about like I have a relative too, or a few of them who are just like, oh no, this is that about like there has to be a God, there has to be this, and I was just like, I don't know, a little bit of a more substantial argument on my part, because even I too feel like, okay, maybe he kind of got me there or something. So I would just like a little bit of help with that, if that's okay. Quickly, if that's possible.
Yeah, I mean, it depends on what the gotcha is, right? I mean, like I said,
yeah, okay.
Yeah, go ahead. Go ahead.
The whole monkey, and like, oh, okay, well, how come there's still monkeys type of thing? And even I'm like, well, I mean, it's a brand that we kind of branched off from, right? Sorry, we branched off from that,
Pascal,
et cetera.
If they say that, then what you say is evolution is descent with modification. And then you say, if dogs come from wolves, why are there still wolves? And then you say, if I come from my grandpa or my parent and then my grandpa, why is my grandpa and my dad still alive? Right? I mean, just because something yields something else doesn't mean it goes extinct.
Yeah, if Adam came from dirt, why is there still dirt?
Yeah, there
that
you
might
go.
be another way to go there. Yeah. Pascal, I'm going to move
Yeah,
on, my
for
friend.
sure.
Been a pleasure speaking with you.
Thank you, guys. Thank you, guys. Alrighty. Have a good one there, guys. Thank you, Seth. Thank you, Erika.
See you later.
Take care.
You know, that's such a broad umbrella question. How do I argue with my religious family who don't accept evolution? My first thought is, well, you're probably not going to get a lot of traction in an argument. They're going to set their heels, voices will be raised, everyone's going to leave pissed off and doubled down. And, I think the question more is, how can I communicate evolutionary science to the curious, right? I don't spend a lot of time with closed systems, Erika. Do you? I mean, if someone's sending but not receiving, life's short. I just don't do it. So
no, I mean, yeah, it has to be somebody who actually wants to have the conversation, right? I mean, when I encounter people who are very stalwart on that, usually it's like, okay, well, I can explain it to you. Is that something you want? And if the answer is yes, then I pull out my heavy artillery and we have a
pull out
conversation.
your baby skull. and
Yeah,
say,
my
here.
replica, my replica baby
Your
skull.
replica.
Don't get it sideways, Seth. As much as I would love to ethically source a real baby skull, I don't.
Wrong.
I do not have one of those. I don't. Yeah, I mean, you have to find somebody who's actually willing to have the conversation, and then from there, I mean, it be careful. I've seen a lot of people here online who want to have conversations with creationists, and if this is like an actual creationist instead of just a non-informed layman, you have to be careful with that kind of stuff because they're going to come with very hyper-specific arguments, and you need to be ready to address those if you're going to have those in a public venue. Private, take it one step at a time, introduce questions, ask them how they explain, the fossil record. I mean, I have a picture that I use that it's just all the hominins, like very similar to this actually, that are lined up next to one another. And I say, okay, which ones are humans and which ones are apes? And they can't answer the question, right? And that's something that you have to be, if evolution says we should see the slow morphologic change over geologic time and I can show it, then you have to give me a better explanation than that. If you want to show that that's actually not a valid interpretation. You can't just say that you don't believe it because you don't believe it. That's not somebody who's worth having a conversation with.
Well, I also think, too, there's an eagerness among many people. They want to get into the debate, and they're like, how do I go? It's almost like when you first come out of the faith. I probably became an activist years before I should have because I just was so desperate to be a part of the conversation. I got to go. And I needed time to absorb, right? I was so far behind. And so my passion was certainly there, but I wish I'd calmed. I wish I had sponged. I wish I had been at a more developed place than I was when I began. I don't have any regrets, but I look back and I think, a lot of people want to go in, how do I debate? I'm thinking, well, this may not be your strength. It may not be an effective use of your time. It may not be your skill set. And so I think there are other questions. And then, of course, if things are, it's absolutely hopeless because they are talking down to you and being horrible and condescending, you can give them one of these. I actually found these online and bought a dozen for friends. It's a coin and it says, my last fuck. And so if you come to a point when you've just had it and you're just done, you just go and you pull this out and you say, oh, this is my last fuck. And
it's for you.
This is for you. And I give this to you in the love of the Lord. And then you just get on.
Have you given any of those out? Have you actually deployed this method?
I've only given them to a couple of friends that I love and said, keep this in case of emergency. Yeah. Because we all know someone. We've all fantasized about saying, you know what? Here's my life.
Like I got no gas left in the tank. Here you go.
Just take it.
Treasure.
So, Erika, how do people find your work on your own channel as you educate about primatology, etc.?
Gutsy Gibbon, Gutsack, Gibbon, like the little long-armed critter. And that's my tag everywhere. If you Google that, you will find.
Why the gibbon over all the other primates?
Look at them. They're so cute.
They really are. And I like the long arms. Are they bipeds? Or
when they come to the ground, they are. Because their arms are too long. They literally have to hold their arms above their heads because they're too long. They'll drag the ground.
So they're the ones that are like
yes. They're the funniest, goofiest, cutest, most aggressive in some cases. I love them. And loud. They're all the things I love about an animal.
One of the monkeys, they're chimps or whatever, people freaking decide they would like to keep them as pets. And then one day they literally one woman had her face ripped off by a pet chimp. What the hell?
Having a pet chimp is like having a toddler who's 3 times as strong as an adult human, right? And this is a toddler who will go through puberty, but maintain the craftiness and emotional intelligence of a toddler. But they're again 3 times stronger than you, and they're going to be like hormonal and angry and horny and curious, and you're going to have that in your house, like. Setting aside the consciousness aspect of it, where like you're keeping this animal away from everything like it, and that does immense amounts of harm to them mentally. They might kill you, right? Like you just don't want to do that.
One day the chimp will look at you and say, "Here's my last fuck."
And then rip your face off.
Then he will rip your face off. Next up, and we are going directly into the show, it is Jimmy Snow calling it now. Jimmy and Jovan are going to be here. I don't know how long the show lasts. I'm guessing all night long.
Forever.
No, actually, Forrest is in at 7 with Shannon Q. Thank you so much, Erika. It's been a joy hanging out. And thanks for spending time with me.
My pleasure.
And see us in Tulsa, March 7th, SethAndrews.com/March 7. We'll see you
It's
there.
going to be great.
Have a good one.
Bring me your skulls to sign.